Chapter 736. This is Qin Chuan slowly sat up and looked at the Milky Way sword and Star Fox by way in front of him. His memories seemed to have returned to his mind, reminding him of the series of events that had happened before. So I was undergoing a tribulation just now. Qin Chuan recalled that he was undergoing a nascent soul stage thunder tribulation. After the last golden thunder tribulation fell, his consciousness suddenly appeared in the runic land and witnessed the great battle that was enough to shake the entire universe. "Master, how are you?" Bai Wei looked at Qin Chuan worriedly. "Don't tell me you've been struck dumb by the lightning." Hearing Bai Wei's words, the Milky Way sword buzzed and vibrated, as if it also suspected that Qin Chuan had been struck dumb by the lightning. "I'm fine, and I feel that I'm in a very good state now." Qin Chuan stood up from the ground and closed his eyes slightly to feel the power in his body. Then he smiled and said, "This is something I've never experienced before, strength." Yes, strength. Other than this word, Qin Chuan could not think of any other word to describe his current feeling. When he had advanced to the Golden Core stage, he had also felt his strength, but now the feeling was 100 times stronger, or even 1,000 times stronger. This was a nascent soul stage cultivator, something that a Golden Core stage cultivator could never compare to. Seeing the confidence and strong aura that naturally exuded from Qin Chuan's body, Bai Wei smiled and said to Qin Chuan, "Congratulations on advancing to the nascent soul stage, Master." Qin Chuan turned his gaze to Bai Wei and asked, "Now that we've severed the master-servant contract, are you still willing to serve me as your master?" Hearing Qin Chuan's words, Bai Wei did not hesitate to kneel down in front of Qin Chuan and respectfully said to Qin Chuan, "Master, please sign the contract with me again." Qin Chuan did not agree to Bai Wei's request. Instead, he chose to refuse. He looked at Bai Wei seriously and said, "When I was unconscious, you could have left, but you chose to stay and look after me. From this point on, I can no longer treat you as my servant. From today onwards, we are friends." "Friends?" Bai Wei raised her eyes to look at Qin Chuan, a look of confusion in her eyes. She had never made friends before and had no idea what kind of existence friendship was. She didn't know how to respond to Qin Chuan, so she could only stare blankly at Qin Chuan. Qin Chuan squatted in front of Bai Wei. He reached out his hand and stroked the soft hair on Bai Wei's head. He smiled and said, "Friends go through thick and thin together. They don't abandon or give up." Hearing Qin Chuan's explanation, Bai Wei looked at Qin Chuan seriously and said, "I am willing to be friends with Master and with you. I am willing to go through thick and thin with you. My name is Qin Chuan. You can call me by my name in the future." Qin Chuan smiled and said to Bai Wei, "You are my friend, Qin Chuan. No one in this world has the right to be your master." Bai Wei nodded and said to Qin Chuan happily, "For my friend, I will work hard to cultivate and reach the Astral King stage as soon as possible." Now that Qin Chuan was already an early-stage nascent soul cultivator, Bai Wei was still a step away from the Astral King stage. She had to work hard to cultivate as soon as possible. After Bai Wei went into space to cultivate, Qin Chuan turned his gaze to the god's sword intent beside him. A complicated look appeared in his eyes. When the golden tribulation lightning struck down, Qin Chuan thought that he would die under it. But at that moment, the god's sword intent suddenly rushed out of his body and fearlessly met the golden tribulation lightning. The god's sword intent wasn't able to sever the golden tribulation lightning, but it successfully weakened a portion of the golden tribulation lightning's power, allowing Qin Chuan to barely withstand it. However, the price of doing so was that the god's sword intent was on the verge of shattering. It was on the verge of collapsing at any moment. If Qin Chuan hadn't woken up in time, the god's sword intent might have really collapsed. Although the god's sword intent hadn't dissipated, it wasn't in a good state either. Qin Chuan didn't know how long it would take for it to recover. Looking at the golden lightning surrounding the god's sword intent, Qin Chuan had a premonition that as long as the god's sword intent could recover, it would definitely bring him a huge surprise. After checking the god's sword intent's condition, Qin Chuan sank his consciousness into his brain, wanting to see the runic sword's condition. However, what surprised Qin was that a part of his brain was sealed. He could only see his own Yao Dan and the little armor dragon, but he couldn't see the runic sword. How can this be? Qin frowned as he looked at the sealed part of his brain. He could clearly sense the existence of the runic sword, but he couldn't see it. After trying to summon the runic sword to no avail, Qin temporarily gave up on this idea. His consciousness returned to his body. Then he looked at the Milky Way sword beside him and asked, "Soon, I will be on my way home. Are you willing to come with me?" In response to Qin's question, the Milky Way sword gently nodded. Then, it used its sword intent to show the image of a handsome man in front of Qin. Seeing the image the Milky Way sword showed, Qin asked, "Do you want to go to the tomb of Senior Sword God to take a look?" The Milky Way sword nodded again, releasing a touch of sadness. Although it had been nearly 1,000 years since Su Inha had fallen, it still couldn't give up its longing for its old master. Before it followed Qin to conquer the world, it wanted to see Su Inha again. Qin smiled slightly and said to the Milky Way sword, "I can understand your feelings. I swear, as long as we can go back alive, I will definitely bring you to the tomb of Senior Sword God. At that time, no matter what you want to do, I will respect your decision." Although the Milky Way sword was a Tao artifact, in Qin's eyes, the Milky Way sword was no different from a normal person. It also had its own emotions and thoughts. Qin never had the selfish thought of taking the Milky Way sword for himself. He also never treated the Milky Way sword god as a dead object. If Sword God Su Inha saw this scene from the heavens, he would be very pleased. Qin looked into the distance and saw the huge destruction caused by his tribulation. His eyes flashed with excitement. Now he had finally become a nascent soul cultivator and had the ability to control his own life. At the same time, he was one step closer to taking revenge. When Bai Wei becomes a Star King, it will be time for me to set foot on the road to return home. I hope Shangwan Yuan Hao can survive until I come back. Qin clenched his fists. When he returned to the center of the Kunlun field, no one could stop him from taking revenge. Chapter 737. Bai Wei's cultivation progress was faster than Qin had expected. In just 2 months, Bai Wei had become a Star King. The process of Star Beast becoming a Star Beast was much easier than Qin had expected. They didn't need to go through a trial at all. It was like eating and drinking. Everything happened naturally. Qin, now that I have become a Star King, I can finally take you back to the center of the Kunlun field. Bai Wei was very happy, not only because she had become a Star King, but also because she could finally do what she had promised to let Qin go. Qin was also very happy. He had waited for this day for too long. He couldn't wait to return to the center of the Kunlun field to meet everyone. The passage of time would never erase their relationship. He always believed in this. How do we work together? Qin looked at Bai Wei curiously. Or do you need me to do something? Bai Wei heard this and said to Qin, "With my current level and strength, I can form a halo of astral power around me. As long as you are within the halo, you can move normally. If you leave the halo's protection with your current strength, you might be able to survive in the universe for 3 days at most." Hearing this, Qin nodded and asked, "How long will it take to get to the center of the Kunlun field from here?" Bai Wei thought for a moment and answered, "Because I have never been to the center of the Kunlun field, it is hard to know the exact time. However, I estimate that it will take about 2 months. 2 months? Qin murmured and then asked, "Will we run into any danger in the universe?" Bai Wei answered helplessly, "There are fights between star beasts. We star foxes are the weakest among the star beasts. It is very likely that we will be targeted by some stronger star beasts. There might be some trouble, and you'll have to deal with it." "I understand." Qin nodded and said to Bai Wei, "I have no more questions. If you are ready, we can leave now." Bai Wei heard this and immediately replied, "Then let's go. I have prepared everything." Qin stood in the sky and looked at the silver white of light that seemed to be right in front of him. A look of anticipation flashed in his eyes. After passing through this silver-white dot of light, he would take the first step back home, and also the most important step. Let's go. As Qin Chuan finished speaking, a halo of astral power about 5 meters in diameter formed around Bai Wei's body. Qin Chuan was inside the halo as he followed Bai Wei through the silver light in front of them and into the universe. This was the first time Qin Chuan had entered the universe with his physical body. There was an indescribable feeling. Sound cannot be transmitted in the universe, so we can only communicate with each other through telepathy. Bai Wei did not open her mouth, but her voice sounded in Qin Chuan's mind. Qin Chuan nodded and transmitted his voice to Bai Wei. The universe is more beautiful and wondrous than I imagined. Although Qin Chuan had seen the universe from a starship before, seeing it up close and seeing it from a starship were two completely different experiences. Standing in the universe, Qin Chuan could see countless stars shining, either bright or dark. When he turned back to look at the sword god's ruins behind him, all he saw was the silver dot of light that had not yet dissipated. He could not sense the existence of the sword god's ruins at all. In your senses, the sword god's ruins do not exist, but in our senses, the sword god's ruins are like a huge rock placed here. It is very difficult to ignore it. This is the difference between the star beasts and you humans. It is also the instinct of us star beasts to survive in the universe. I really don't know what kind of technology those people in the Air Center used to determine the existence of the ruins. Just as Qin Chuan and Bai Wei were talking, the Star Fox that Bai Wei had sent out to scout had returned. He reported to the Star Fox that there were no other star beasts in the direction of the Air Center. After receiving the information, Bai Wei carried Qin Chuan toward the Air Center. Step by step, they were getting closer and closer. In a space relic that has yet to be completely explored, several figures were using high-tech instruments in their hands to detect the danger level of the area in the relic. When a red light spot appeared on the detector, the faces of these people became somewhat subtle. They are living creatures in the unknown area. From the mark, they should be dangerous creatures. We need to work together. The person holding the detector stopped before he could finish his sentence. This was because several red dots had appeared on the detector at this time. Why are there suddenly so many red dots? Someone asked in confusion. Is there a problem with the instrument? It shouldn't be a problem with the instrument. The dangerous creatures we detected probably live in groups, so they are orange. They're orange. The person who was speaking suddenly exclaimed. His eyes were filled with shock as he looked at the detector in his hand. Looking at the sudden emergence of the dense red light spots and the few orange light spots, his face was filled with horror. Retreat. Retreat immediately. Everyone who came back to their senses made the decision to retreat almost without hesitation. Whether or not there was a problem with the instrument, they had to leave here as soon as possible. Just as everyone was about to pack up and leave to return to the spacecraft, a huge creature suddenly descended from the sky and blocked their way. Looking at the huge red-shelled insect in front of them, everyone's eyes could not help but show a strong sense of horror. Zerg! It's Zerg! Zerg has entered. Pucci! The horrified cry came to an abrupt end. A thick and sharp insect leg ignored the defensive ability of the robe and ruthlessly pierced through his chest, instantly taking away his life. At the same time, it crushed his soul, causing him to be destroyed in an instant. It's not Zerg, it's the holy race. A tall figure covered in a red shell, riding on the head of a red-shelled insect, slowly got up and looked around at everyone with a cold gaze. He sneered in a language that everyone could understand. I'm Karfeng, the general of the holy race's Red Vanguard. Humans and shifters, your end has come. As Karfeng's voice fell, countless red-shelled insects and Zerg knights rushed out of the unknown area of the universal ruin. They crazily shouted and rushed toward the portal in the distance. Seeing this scene, despair appeared in the eyes of everyone who had been intimidated by Karfeng. The Zerg race had invaded. The center of the Kunlun field is in danger. Chapter 738. Air Center, World Within a World, Security Command Center. Captain, 4 detectors in Rune 0987 have been cut off from the headquarters. Captain, 3 detectors in Rune 0886 have also been cut off from the headquarters. Captain, same here. For detectors in Rune 0878 have been cut off from the headquarters. Captain Lintz, who was sitting in the commander's seat, frowned when he heard the report. He said in a low voice, 3 detectors in the area we're in charge of monitoring have been cut off from the headquarters. Something must have happened. Reported immediately, rumble. Suddenly, the ground started to shake violently, followed by countless screams of terror. It seemed like something extremely terrifying had happened. What's going on? Lintz turned his gaze to the monitoring station. When he saw the giant creature walking out of the portal, his eyes widened in disbelief. Zerg! It's Zerg! The team members couldn't help but exclaim. Zerg has invaded the ruin and came here through the portal into ruin. I know, Lintz yelled angrily and shouted at everyone, immediately cut off all the portals in the ruin, and cut off the portals were in charge of connecting to the air center. Hearing Lintz's order, the team members were shocked. Once they cut off the portals connecting to the air center, their world within a world would become an isolated island. What are you waiting for? Carry out my order immediately, Lintz yelled. The air center must not have reacted yet. We have to cut off our losses and keep Zerg in the world within a world. Once Zerg enters the air center, the consequences will be unimaginable. Lintz firmly believed that this was the best decision at the moment, and he believed that the other teams would make the same decision. At this moment, the team members suddenly exclaimed again and said to Lintz, Captain Wang Long of the 4th team has escaped through portal number 4 with his men. Hearing the team members' report, Lintz's face suddenly turned pale. He roared to the sky, Damn Wang Long! He ruined our air center. Air center! Quick, run! The terrified Wang Long immediately cried out to the staff guarding the portal after passing through it. Everyone was puzzled when they heard Wang Long's cry. Why was he running away for no reason? Captain Wang, what happened to you? The worker walked to Wang Long's side with concern and reached out to support him. At this moment, a sharp red insect leg abruptly appeared in front of his eyes and ruthlessly pierced his throat. Before he died, the staff member looked at the red-shelled insect that crawled out of Wang Long's chest. His eyes were filled with despair and shock. Zerg! It's Zerg! When they saw the situation of Wang Long and the staff member, the others immediately cried out in alarm. At the same time, the figure of a huge red beetle suddenly appeared in the portal. Seeing this scene, the staff members present all had a look of horror on their faces. Quick, close the portal. At this time, as long as they weren't idiots, they would realize that something had happened in the world within a world. It was very likely that Zerg had invaded. They had to close the portal now and seal Zerg in the world within a world. However, it was already too late for them to close the portal now. Upper House. Shen Feng walked into the chairman's office with a very serious expression. He looked at Tian Yuan, who was standing in front of the window and admiring the scenery, and said in a low voice, Chairman, there's news from the front, I know. Before Shen Feng finished speaking, Tian Yuan interrupted, I feel the evil aura. They have already arrived at the air center. Hearing Tian Yuan's words, Shen Feng's expression changed slightly. He asked, Chairman, what should we do? Tian Yuan slowly turned his head to look at Shen Feng and said without hesitation, Pass down the order. Arrange for the residents to retreat. All staff in the air center will cover the rear. Shen Feng immediately asked, Then what about Miss? Let Tian Mei stay. Tian Yuan took a deep breath and said, I want to see who dares to arrange for their own people to retreat before Tian Mei leaves. Zerg's invasion? Hua Wuing looked at Lu Xing, who came to report the news in astonishment. It was as if she had heard something extremely unbelievable. It's indeed Zerg's invasion. Lu Xing's expression was extremely serious. Zerg has invaded the world within a world and arrived at the air center through the world within a world. Hua Wuing immediately said to Lu Xing, Immediately arrange for the field troops and the garrison troops to go in support. Let the logistics troops become the garrison troops. Hearing Hua Wuing's order, Lu Xing asked, What about you? I'll naturally lead the garrison troops to the front line. Hua Wuying looked deeply at Lu Xing. His friends are all in the world within a world. I didn't take good care of him back then. Now, I must take good care of his friends for him. Hearing Hua Wuying's words, Lu Xing's expression suddenly became a little sad. He knew who Hua Wuying was talking about. He had been deeply regretting that he didn't stand up bravely back then. Perhaps standing up wouldn't have affected the result, but at least he tried his best. However, he didn't. Okay, go and carry out the order immediately. Hua Wuying turned around and looked out the window with a serious expression. Zerg's invasion still came in the end. World within a world. Countless Zerg passed through the streets and alleys, chasing after the humans and shifters in the world within a world. In a hidden corner, a purple orb as bright as an eye floated in midair. It emitted a hazy purple light that covered a small area. Those Zerg walked past the purple light as if they didn't see anything and completely ignored this side. In this purple light, Lu Zi and the others hid there quietly, not daring to make any sound. The moment they sensed Zerg's invasion, they wanted to retreat to the air center. However, at that time, the teleportation gate to the air center was either closed or occupied by Zerg. They had no chance to retreat at all. Facing the threat of Zerg, they had no choice but to find such a secluded place to hide with the help of the Purple Star Godly Eyes and wait for a good opportunity to escape. Why did so many Zerg suddenly appear? Everyone looked at the Zerg passing by outside and listened to the sounds of killing. Their eyes were filled with shock. Zerg's sudden attack caught the air center off guard. There was a high chance that it would be lost. Once the air center was lost, they would be in danger. Chapter 739. Star Dragon Federation. Ever since Qinchuan's group left the Star Dragon Federation for the Air Center, the Star Dragon Federation had settled down. There were no longer any major events that attracted attention. Of course, the Star Dragon Federation and the Boundary Mountain Alliance had attracted some attention for a while, but it had quickly died down. The Black Moon Combat Academy had also been quiet for a long time. The new students had only heard of Qinchuan's legendary deeds, but they had never seen Qinchuan in person. Many people felt that it was a pity, but there were also some new students who thought highly of themselves and felt that they were not inferior to Qinchuan. They wanted to become Ningya's students, but unfortunately, they had not even seen Ningya's face since school had started. In the library, Ning Zhongtian sat at a low table, as usual, meticulously copying books. Ningya sat beside him, making tea. After making the tea, Ningya could not help but sigh. She whispered, "Qinchuan, that brat, ran to the air center. He's been gone for more than 4 years, and he didn't even come back to see us." Ever since Qinchuan had gone to the air center 4 years ago, Ningya had stayed in the Black Moon Combat Academy and rarely went out. She had thought that Qinchuan would return after 1 or 2 years of fame. However, she had not heard any news about Qinchuan. She had asked people to find out about Qinchuan, but they had not heard anything about him. If it were not for the fact that Qinchuan had left behind a life tablet before he left, Ningya would have thought that Qinchuan had died outside. Hearing Ningya's sigh, Ning Zhongtian looked up at her. Just as he was about to speak, the ground suddenly trembled. Ning Zhongtian's expression changed abruptly. "What's wrong?" Ningya was confused. "Was that an earthquake?" "It's not an earthquake." Ning Zhongtian slowly stood up and said to Ningya, "Something happened in the Cursed Lands." Ningya was shocked. She asked, "Something happened in the Cursed Lands? How?" "I don't have time to explain it to you." Ning Zhongtian looked at Ningya. "I'm going to the Cursed Lands now. If I don't return in a day, go see Mo Jun immediately and tell him to prepare." Before Ning Zhongtian could finish his sentence, he had already disappeared. Ningya continued to ask, "What preparations do you need to make?" but did not receive any response from Ning Zhongtian. This made Ningya feel uneasy. Ning Zhongtian's figure appeared in the Cursed Lands almost instantaneously. He stood in the air and looked down at the ground below him. Looking at the huge altar on the dark ground, a solemn look flashed across his eyes. Dong! 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 The ground began to tremble, as if a gigantic heart buried deep underground was beating. With the beating of the heart, an extremely evil aura was awakened, emitting a terrifying pressure. As expected, you've recovered. Ning Zhongtian looked at the ground that was trembling and cracking beneath his feet and slowly took out a black token from his storage ring. He looked at this black token that he had kept for almost 10,000 years, and a look of determination flashed across his eyes. Then he crushed the black token in his hand with all his might. Star Dragon City, Yi family. In a secret underground base, Ancestor Ting, who had been in a state of deep sleep, suddenly woke up. He looked at the black token hanging on the door in front of him. The black token that was originally intact had now shattered into several pieces and fell to the ground. Looking at the shattered black token, Ancestor Ting's eyes were indifferent, as if he had not seen anything. He slowly closed his eyes again. This kind of thing did not only happen in the Yi family, but also in the Qin family, Shiman family, Qian family, and Black City. After seeing the shattered black token, they all went back into a state of deep sleep. They had no intention of listening to the edict at all. In the Cursed Lands, when Ning Zhongtian saw the black token shatter but did not receive any response, his old face could not help but reveal a touch of loneliness. He said in a low voice, "Thousands of years have passed, and you've lived until now. In the end, you've forgotten your mission, but I haven't. Even if there are thousands of people, I will go." In the vast universe, Qin Chuan sat cross-legged beside Bai Wei and was cultivating. Suddenly, he felt something and opened his eyes to look ahead. Sensing Qin Chuan's movements, Bai Wei immediately asked with concern, "Qin Chuan, what's wrong?" Hearing Bai Wei's words, Qin Chuan frowned slightly and replied, "I have a very bad feeling. It seems like something bad has happened." Bai Wei was slightly shocked and said to Qin Chuan, "Are you sure?" As a cultivator's cultivation level increases, their senses in all aspects become stronger. Qin Chuan looked ahead deeply and said to Bai Wei, "My senses won't be wrong. Something must have happened. I must return to the center of the Kunlun field as soon as possible." "I understand." Bai Wei nodded and sped up. Just as Qin Chuan and Bai Wei were working hard to advance to the center of the Kunlun field, an extremely shocking battle was erupting there. It had been half a month since Zerg's invasion. In this half a month, the center of the Kunlun field was in a state of complete collapse. It wasn't until Zerg occupied nearly half of the center of the Kunlun field that the center of the Kunlun field worked together to stabilize the situation. Today was the day of the battle between Zerg's vanguard, Ka Feng, and Tian Yuan. In the past period of time, although Zerg and the center of the Kunlun field fought every day, most of it was the people below who fought. There were very few top combatants fighting. Moreover, the center of the Kunlun field lost in succession and their morale was extremely low. In order to boost morale and restore morale, Tian Yuan had to personally face Ka Feng. He wanted to use a great victory to inspire people. In the sky, Ka Feng looked at Tian Yuan standing in front of him and laughed. "You're the strongest of the human and demon race? You're just a peak nascent soul." Hearing Ka Feng's disdainful words, Tian Yuan was unmoved. He looked at Ka Feng calmly and said indifferently, "If you want to fight, then fight. Why waste your breath?" Seeing Tian Yuan so calm, Ka Feng smiled and said calmly, "What you said is very reasonable. But aren't you curious why I want to fight you today?" Tian Yuan frowned slightly and asked, "What are you trying to say?" Ka Feng looked at Tian Yuan meaningfully and sneered. "I heard you have a very beautiful daughter. In order to stabilize morale, you didn't send her away and have always kept her by your side to protect her. Now that you've come to accept the challenge, I wonder if you've left people to continue protecting your daughter?" Hearing Ka Feng's words, Tin Yuan's complexion instantly turned extremely unsightly. At the same time, an earth-shattering rumble suddenly erupted from the camp behind Tian Yuan. The source of the sound was Tin Yuan's temporary command center. Tian Mei was there. Chapter 740. When he heard the explosion behind him, Tian Yuan knew that he had fallen into a trap. This was Zerg's plan to lure the tiger away from the mountain. He wanted to capture Tian Mei to threaten him. Whoosh! A terrifying fluctuation of spiritual energy cut through the sky, and like a sharp sword, it ruthlessly stabbed into Ka Feng's body. Although the powerful force wasn't able to pierce through Ka Feng's shell, it still left a clear mark on it. Although Ka Feng had always been verbally contemptuous of Tian Yuan, in reality, he valued Tian Yuan very much. A leader who could subdue everyone definitely wasn't someone easy to deal with. Tian Yuan's sudden attack also proved this point. If it wasn't for the armor's protection, Tian Yuan's casual attack would have been enough to seriously injure him. Just as Ka Feng was thinking about this, Tian Yuan's figure had already appeared in front of him. He raised his hand and punched out. This simple and unadorned attack made Ka Feng's body and mind tremble with a strong sense of crisis. Boom! The moment Tian Yuan's fist neared Ka Feng, an extremely vast power erupted from Tian Yuan's fist and fiercely struck Ka Feng's body. Ka Feng's body was almost instantly smashed into the ground from the sky, and a rumbling sound erupted from the ground. After repelling Ka Feng, Tian Yuan didn't take advantage of the situation to chase after him. Instead, he turned around and wanted to return to the camp to deal with the attack. However, at this time, a red mucus suddenly shot out from the ground. Tian Yuan dodged to the side and frowned as he looked at Ka Feng on the ground. If he couldn't deal with Ka Feng, it would be difficult for him to return and defend. Your opponent is me. Where do you think you're going? Ka Feng sneered at Tian Yuan. His figure flashed and appeared in front of Tian Yuan. Clearly, he didn't plan on letting Tian Yuan leave. Tian Yuan pursed his lips and didn't say anything. His aura suddenly rose, and he actually released his complete form. He wanted to face Ka Feng in his strongest state. Seeing Tian Yuan erupt, Ka Feng's expression suddenly became dignified. At this time, a simple and honest figure suddenly appeared behind Tian Yuan and shouted at Tian Yuan. Chairman, the command center was attacked. Tian Mei was captured by Zerg. Fortunately, I passed by and saved Tian Mei. Hearing the words behind him, Tian Yuan subconsciously turned around. When he saw Starry Sky and Tian Mei's figures, Tian Yuan's nervous mood immediately relaxed. At this moment, the simple and honest expression on Starry Sky's face suddenly turned sinister and cunning. Whoosh! The red mucus that Heaven Abyss dodged suddenly fell from the sky. Just as Heaven Abyss was about to dodge, Starry Sky suddenly roared, raised his hand, and mercilessly crushed Tian Mei's head. When he saw Tian Mei's head being crushed by Starry Sky, the expression on Tian Yuan's face immediately turned into shock and despair. He cried out involuntarily, "No!" It was this short moment of absent-mindedness that caused Tian Yuan to be unable to dodge the red mucus. When the red mucus landed on Tian Yuan's body, Tian Yuan's face suddenly turned red, as if he had been poisoned. His spiritual force was instantly sealed, and he fell to the ground like a stone. Then Ka Feng casually controlled him. Looking at the heavenly abyss who already became a turtle in a jar, Ka Feng said somewhat emotionally, "This is your human race's strongest person? Who would have thought that his daughter would be his greatest weakness? If it weren't for your good plan, it would have been difficult for us to take him down. It's mainly because you're wise and mighty, General." Starry Sky seemed to have turned into that simple and honest fatty again. He casually threw away the fake Tian Mei in his hand and fawned over Ka Feng like a lackey. Seeing Starry Sky's performance, Ka Feng coldly snorted and asked, "You're also a human powerhouse. Don't you find it shameful to show such an appearance?" Hearing Ka Feng's ridicule, Starry Sky didn't feel ashamed. Instead, he gave a silly smile and replied, "At first, I was determined to resist your insect, Saint Race, but now our rear is in complete chaos. Why should I sacrifice myself in a situation where I know I will die?" "You're quite tactful," Ka Feng sneered. "When our Saint Race army takes the air center, the land of exile will have almost turned into scorched earth. Star Dragon Federation, the ancient blue city that stood in the Black Moon Mountain Range for nearly 10,000 years, had now turned into ruins. Traces of battle could be seen everywhere on the ground. The flames of war had burned the entire Black Moon Mountain range, turning thousands of miles of land into scorched earth. On the ground, an incomparably huge red-shelled insect stood there, wreaking havoc everywhere. The silver-white chains that tightly bound the red-shelled insect were on the verge of breaking. Once the chains broke, there would be nothing left to restrain the red-shelled insect. At that time, it would no longer be the Black Moon Mountain range that would be ravaged, but the entire Star Dragon Federation. In the sky, Ning Zhongtian looked at the red-shelled insect not far away. His pale face was filled with anger and helplessness. "Teacher, what's going on?" Ningya stood beside Ning Zhongtian and looked at the shrieking red-shelled insect. Her face was full of disbelief. She couldn't understand how such a terrifying monster could exist in the Black Moon Mountain range. Facing Ningya's question, Ning Zhongtian pursed his lips and said, "This is General Kargard, who was sealed in the Black Moon Mountain range 10,000 years ago during the Great Chaos. I've been guarding this place for nearly 10,000 years to prevent Kargard from breaking through the seal and wreaking havoc on the world." Hearing Ning Zhongtian's explanation, Ningya's face couldn't help but reveal an extremely shocked expression. She cried out involuntarily, "Isn't the cursed land the place where the elves fell? How could Zerg exist here? What you know is only a part of the truth. The cursed land is indeed the place where the elves perished. The ones who perished the elves weren't us humans, nor were they the Yao race. It was this big guy in front of you, Kargard. What's going on here?" At the end of the Great Chaos, Kargard was the general of Zerg's vanguard. He wanted to join forces with the elves to attack us humans. However, the elves were already tired of war at that time and rejected Kargard's sincerity. It was also because of this that Kargard attacked the elves in a fit of rage. He went on a killing spree in the Elven City. Kargard's power was something the elves couldn't resist. At the time, the elves asked for help from us humans. They were willing to exchange the hope for our help. However, when we humans arrived at the battlefield, the elves were already dead. Those who survived had been corrupted by Kargard and turned into monsters like the Mountain Ghost. However, Kargard was like an undying monster. We couldn't kill him. In the end, the royal blood elves sacrificed their entire race's lives to seal away the unkillable Kargard. And I was the Mountain Gar back then. Chapter 741. After hearing Ning Zhongtian's explanation, Ningya was completely stunned. She never would have thought that Zerg had something to do with the destruction of the elven race 10,000 years ago. It was not as simple as she thought. However, they were unable to kill this giant before them 10,000 years ago. How are they going to deal with this giant before them now? "Teacher, how are we going to deal with this guy?" Ningya looked at Kargard's mountain-like body and couldn't help but ask, "Are we going to be his match?" Facing Ningya's question, Ning Zhongtian answered very honestly, "We are no match for him. If this guy was so easy to deal with, he wouldn't be alive now." Hearing Ning Zhongtian's answer, Ningya asked in confusion, "Then what should we do now? Should we seal him again?" From Ningya's point of view, they were no match for Kargard and they couldn't kill him. The only way left now was to seal Kargard again. However, back then, the elven race sacrificed the lives of their entire race to seal Kargard. Even if Kargard's strength was weaker than before, it was definitely not something that she and Ning Zhongtian could seal together. Back then, I wasn't the only one guarding the mountain. There were 6 of them. If the 6 of us worked together, it's not impossible to seal Kargard again. Ning Zhongtian looked deeply at Kargard's struggling giant body and said in a low voice, "I summoned them, but I didn't get any response." Ningya was slightly taken aback and asked, "Are they dead?" "They're not dead, but they're afraid of death." Ning Zhongtian turned and looked deeply at Ningya. "The price for sealing Kargard again is that all 6 of us will die." "Teacher." Ningya opened her mouth but couldn't say anything. She didn't know what to say at this moment. Right now, Kargard has just escaped, and his consciousness is still in a chaotic state. Everything he's doing now is subconscious. If we don't seal him again now, it'll be almost impossible for us to seal him again once his consciousness awakens. As he spoke, Ning Zhongtian took out an 8 trigram formation plate and said to Ningya, "Even if the 5 of them don't come, I'll still give it a try." Hearing this, Ningya immediately asked Ning Zhongtian, "Teacher, will you die if you go alone?" Hearing Ningya's question, Ning Zhongtian looked at her with a complicated gaze and pursed lips. "This is my duty." Without waiting for Ningya to say anything, Ning Zhongtian had already charged towards Kargard. His figure flickered continuously in the air, and in the blink of an eye, he arrived above Kargard. He looked at Kargard, who was wreaking havoc and trampling half of the Black Moon Mountain range into a mess, and his eyes couldn't help but flash with a fierce glint. "Bastard!" Ning Zhongtian roared angrily. He raised his hand and poured powerful spiritual energy into the 8 trigram formation plate. Under the stimulation of his spiritual energy, the 8 trigram formation plate released a golden light and formed a huge 8 trigram formation in the air. Then, it enveloped Kargard on the ground. Kargard seemed to have sensed the existence of danger. He looked up at Ning Zhongtian in the sky, opened his mouth, and spat out a mouthful of red mucus at Ning Zhongtian. At this moment, Ning Zhongtian was controlling the 8 trigrams formation plate with all his might and was unable to dodge. Just as the red mucus was about to reach Ning Zhongtian, a stream of water suddenly appeared in the sky. It wrapped around the red mucus and caused it to deviate from its original attack trajectory, brushing past Ning Zhongtian. Ningya's figure flashed and appeared in front of Ning Zhongtian. With her back facing Ning Zhongtian, she said, "Teacher, don't worry about it. I'll protect you." Hearing Ningya's words, Ning Zhongtian couldn't help but look at Ningya's back with more kindness. He didn't say any words of gratitude. Instead, he focused all his attention on controlling the 8 trigram formation plate. Kargard saw that his attack had missed, and his face couldn't help but reveal an extremely ugly expression. He screamed at Ningya and spat out several red mucus at Ningya and Ning Zhongtian. Facing Kargard's second attack, Ningya didn't hesitate to inscribe a defensive glyph formation. Through the flow of water, the red mucus was diverted from its original attack trajectory and flew in all directions. Although this appeared to be a simple deviation from the attack trajectory of the red mucus, the difficulty of actually executing it wasn't small at all. The red mucus that Kargard casually spat out was not only extremely fast, but also extremely powerful. Coupled with its powerful corrosive effect, Ningya had to focus all her attention on defending and deal with it accurately, not daring to slack off in the slightest. Just as Ningya was defending against Kargard's attack with all her might, Kargard suddenly stopped his attack and quieted down. Seeing Kargard calm down, Ningya was puzzled. Ning Zhongtian's expression changed greatly, and he said in a low voice, "His consciousness is about to awaken." Hearing Ning Zhongtian's words, Ningya's expression instantly turned ugly. The unconscious Kargard was already extremely difficult to deal with. Once his consciousness awakens, no one in this world will be a match for him. Ugh! An extremely low and deep voice suddenly rang out between the heavens and the earth. Kargard's cruel eyes gradually revealed a trace of doubt. However, this doubt quickly turned into a cold and domineering look. The aura around his body also became strong. Boom! Kargard suddenly spread out the huge, scissor-like wings on his back and stirred up a hurricane in the Black Moon Mountain range. Ningya and Ning Zhongtian's figures couldn't help but sway. How many years has it been? This great general has finally awakened. Kargard looked around and finally fixed his gaze on Ningya and Ning Zhongtian. "Humans, it's you again." Kargard glared angrily at Ningya and Ning Zhongtian. He opened his ferocious mouth and a red ball of light suddenly shot out. It almost instantly arrived in front of Ningya. Ningya subconsciously blocked with the defensive glyph array in front of her. However, the defensive glyph array was as weak as a thin piece of paper in front of the red ball of light. It was almost instantly penetrated. The red ball of light didn't lose its momentum and ruthlessly bombarded Ningya's body. Then it suddenly exploded. The powerful impact almost instantly caused Ningya to suffer heavy injuries and lose the ability to fight on the spot. With just a casual attack, Kargard almost killed Ningya. If such a terrifying power really ran rampant in the Star Dragon Federation, it would be the end of the world for the entire Star Dragon Federation. And, after defeating Ningya, Kargard turned his gaze to Ning Zhongtian. When he saw the 8 trigrams array in Ning Zhongtian's hand, his gaze instantly turned gloomy. Chapter 742. Human, what do you think you're doing? Kargard screeched and suddenly flapped his wings as he charged towards Ning Zhongtian. However, at this moment, the 8 trigrams formation in Ning Zhongtian's hand suddenly shone brightly. Like the sun in the sky, it released an extremely hot and dazzling light. This light condensed into golden chains in the air, tightly wrapping around Kargard's massive body. Almost instantly, Kargard was bound to the spot, unable to move at all. Bastard! Kargard roared in anger. He was unwilling to accept this. He had just broken free. How could he be sealed again? Cough, cough. Ning Zhongtian coughed violently. His appearance had undergone an earth-shattering change. In an instant, he had turned from a middle-aged man into an old man with 1 foot in the grave. His entire body was emitting an aura of decay and death. It's finally done. Ning Zhongtian raised his hand to wipe away the blood at the corner of his mouth. Looking at the sealed Kargard, his eyes could not help but reveal a trace of regret. If the 6 mountain guards had attacked together, Kargard would have been sealed for at least another 10,000 years. However, now that he was the only one attacking, the seal would only last for a short 100 days. This was already the limit of what he could do. If no one could strengthen the seal or kill Kargard within 100 days, then Kargard would break free once again. Furthermore, a fully awakened Kargard would not be easily sealed again. You bastard! Kargard glared at Ning Zhongtian, wanting to attack him. However, the seal on his body prevented him from using any strength. He could only use his eyes to vent the murderous intent and anger in his heart. Facing Kargard's eyes filled with hatred, Ning Zhongtian chuckled. His body suddenly trembled and fell towards the ground. At this moment, a figure covered in blood appeared beside Ning Zhongtian and landed on the ground with him. Teacher, Ningya, whose face was pale, looked at Ning Zhongtian's blotchy face and could not help but sob softly. Ning Zhongtian looked at Ningya kindly and said to her in an extremely low and weak voice, Ningya, this seal can only seal for 100 days. In this 100 days, you must find a way to solve it. If you can't, then Ning Zhongtian said, then so be it. For a long time, he couldn't say another word. Ningya's soft sobs also turned into loud wails. Her most respected teacher had finally left this world. Teacher, teacher, teacher. Ningya cried bitterly. She couldn't accept this reality, but there was nothing she could do except cry bitterly. Ha ha ha, this is the price you have to pay for forcefully sealing me. With his soul destroyed, he didn't even have the chance to reincarnate. Not far away, the sealed Kargard saw Ning Zhongtian's death and couldn't help but laugh maniacally. When the seal on his body lost its effect again, it would be the time for him to overturn this world. At that time, he would make everyone in this world pay with their lives for Ning Zhongtian's foolish actions. Hearing Kargard's merciless ridicule, Ningya suddenly turned her head and glared at Kargard with hatred. She swore, I will definitely kill you. Whoosh! A figure flew through the air and landed steadily beside Ningya. He looked at the lifeless Ning Zhongtian on the ground in shock and said in a low voice, This is Ning Zhongtian. What the hell is going on? The person who spoke was none other than Marshal Mo June of the army, who had rushed here after receiving Ningya's notice. If he hadn't seen it with his own eyes today, he wouldn't have believed that such a terrifying big guy was hiding in the Black Moon Mountains. When he was still 10,000 miles away from the Black Moon Mountains, Mo June had sensed an extremely terrifying aura. The strength of that aura made him tremble with fear, and he didn't even dare to approach. If he hadn't sensed that Ning Zhongtian's aura was rapidly deteriorating and that terrifying aura was suddenly sealed, he wouldn't have dared to come here. In response to Mo June's question, Ningyu replied in a low voice, "That is General Zerg Kargard. 10,000 years ago, he was the one who exterminated the elven race. After that, he was sealed in the Black Moon Mountains and was guarded by my teacher and a few others. 10,000 years later, those people have all left. Only my teacher is still guarding the place." When Mo June heard Ningyu's words, he couldn't help but widen his eyes in shock. He subconsciously turned to look at Kargard and said in disbelief, "He was the one who exterminated the elven race. Could he be the reason why your teacher has been guarding the Black Moon Combat Academy all this time?" Ningyu nodded again and said in a low voice, "Yes, my teacher has been guarding the Black Moon Combat Academy all these years to guard Kargard's seal." When Kargard saw Mo June looking at him, he immediately roared at Mo June, "Human, once the seal is broken, I will kill all of you." When faced with Kargard's threat, Mo June's expression immediately turned ugly. Ever since he had become the marshal of the military, no one had dared to threaten him like this. However, he could not ignore Kargard's threat. Ningyu staggered to her feet and looked at Mo June. Originally, there were 6 mountain guards. After Kargard's seal was loosened, my teacher summoned the other 5 mountain guards. However, they were unwilling to come. My teacher could only sacrifice his life to temporarily seal Kargard. This seal will only last for 100 days. If we are unable to completely seal or exterminate Kargard within 100 days, then we should prepare to die. When he heard Ningyu's words, Mo June was shocked and asked, "Why are the other 5 mountain guards unwilling to come?" "Because sealing Kargard requires them to pay with their lives." Ningyu sneered. "They have enjoyed the glory and wealth of the world and have long since abandoned their inner beliefs. How could they be willing to sacrifice their lives for others?" When he heard Ningyu's explanation, Mo June's expression suddenly turned gloomy. He angrily asked, "Who are they?" Ningyu shook her head and replied, "I don't know. The situation was too urgent at the time, and my teacher did not have time to explain." Actually, Ningyu knew that Ning Zhongtian had already been prepared to sacrifice himself. The reason he did not reveal the names of the 5 mountain guards was not because he did not have enough time, but because he wanted to protect her. He did not want her to look for the 5 mountain guards after the event. When Mo June heard this, he once again turned to look at the sealed Kargard with a serious expression. He had never thought that the Star Dragon Federation would be facing a crisis of extinction before Zerg invasion. 100 days. They only had 100 days. Chapter 743. Center of the Air, World Within a World. Under the light of the purple star divine eye, Lu Zi's face was pale and exhausted. She had already maintained the concealment effect of the purple star divine eye for 3 whole days. She was exhausted mentally and physically. If it wasn't for her unfulfilled wish, she probably wouldn't be able to hold on any longer and would have fainted. Everyone else could see how weak Lu Zi was, but they couldn't do anything except worry. "We can't keep going like this. If Lu Zi can't hold on any longer, we'll still die." Chun Chong Sheng gritted his teeth. "We should break out." "Break out? Tell us how we're going to break out," she said in a low voice. "Any one of these Zerg squads outside can destroy us. If we break out, we'll be hastening our deaths. I know that it's not easy for Lu Zi to hold on until now. We're the ones who dragged Lu Zi down. If it weren't for us, Lu Zi wouldn't be so exhausted." Hearing she use words, everyone's expression became complicated. They looked at Lu Zi with shame. If Lu Zi only used the purple star divine eye to protect herself, she might have found a chance to escape long ago. But in order to protect everyone, Lu Zi chose to stay. But now, they could only watch as Lu Zi became weaker and weaker while protecting them. There was nothing they could do. It's been 3 days, and the world within a world is still under Zerg's control. This means that the center of the air can't fight back against Zerg. It might even Long Xiao stop speaking at this point. Even if she didn't finish speaking, everyone understood what she meant. This was definitely the most unacceptable result for them. "There's movement outside." Be careful. Bai suddenly reminded everyone to be careful. Hearing this, everyone immediately turned their attention to the outside. The originally quiet outside suddenly became noisy, as if someone had broken in. Could it be that the center of the air's counterattack has arrived? Long Xiao was pleasantly surprised. Maybe Zerg lost. Everyone was pleasantly surprised when they heard Long Xiao's words. They couldn't think of anything else that could cause such a huge commotion outside. Just as everyone was looking forward to the arrival of reinforcements, the commotion outside seemed to have died down a little. It seemed that Zerg had suppressed the commotion. Just as everyone was wondering what was going on, they suddenly heard someone calling out to them. Lu Zi, Long Xiao, Chen Changxing Baiyu, Shiyu, where are you? Hearing this call, everyone was stunned for a moment, but they quickly recovered. Someone was looking for them. I'll go out and respond to her. Before anyone could say anything, Shiyu had already stepped out of the purple star divine eyes range and shouted, I'm here. Before Shiyu could finish her sentence, a figure suddenly appeared beside her and asked in a deep voice, where are the others? Get them to come out and follow me. Upon hearing this person's words, Shiyu immediately turned around. At the same time, the light from the purple star divine eyes dissipated, revealing Lu Zi and the others. When the person saw everyone appear, she immediately reached out and wrapped everyone up with her spiritual energy, wanting to leave this place. At this moment, Zerg arrived and wanted to stop everyone from leaving. I'll stop these Zerg and buy you some time. She shouted in a low voice and suddenly rushed towards Zerg. He roared and released his complete form. Like a dazzling small sun, he rushed into Zerg and launched an attack without any hesitation. Zerg's movements were slowed down by Shiyu's obstruction. Shiyu. Everyone was shocked when they saw Shiyu's actions. They subconsciously wanted to help Shiyu, but their bodies involuntarily rose into the air and flew in the opposite direction. Shiyu is still over there. Chen Changxing looked at Shiyu, who was fighting Zerg, and his eyes almost popped out of their sockets. He wished that he could be in Shiyu's place. He won't be able to survive. A cold voice sounded in Chen Changxing's ears. He was buying time for us with the belief that he would die. If it wasn't for his sacrifice, we might not be so relaxed now. Hearing this, everyone's faces were filled with grief and indignation. They were about to be saved, but their comrade was sacrificed. They really could not accept this fact. As they spoke, everyone had already arrived in front of the portal. They could clearly see that there were a large number of Zerg guarding the portal. At the same time, there were also a large number of Zerg corpses lying on the ground. Obviously, these Zerg were killed by the people who saved them. After a not-so-intense battle, they passed through the portal and returned to the center of the Kunlun field. However, the scene in front of them made them feel extremely hopeless. Countless Zerg were guarding in front of them, blocking their escape route. Hua Wuing, I really don't know why you forced your way into the world within a world when you could have escaped. Is it because of these little guys? Starry Sky's fat figure stood in the air and looked at Hua Wuing's perfect body with a wretched gaze. Give up resisting, and I might be able to save your life. Starry Sky, you're really getting more and more disgusting. Hua Wuing stared at Starry Sky with disgust and hatred. If it wasn't because of this guy's sudden betrayal, the situation in the center of the Kunlun field would not have become like this. Hua Wuing, you're Hua Wuing. Lu Zi, who looked tired, suddenly turned her gaze to Hua Wuing, who was standing in front of her, and said excitedly, Did Qin Chuan ask you to save us? Although Lu Zi had never seen Hua Wuing before, she was very familiar with the name Hua Wuing. This was because she had investigated the information of the monitoring department in the past and knew that the director of the monitoring department was called Hua Wuing. They had never seen Hua Wuing before and were not related to her. However, Hua Wuing had saved them at such a dangerous time. It must be related to Qin Chuan, who was locked up in the monitoring department. Other than that, Lu Zi could not think of a better reason. Everyone was extremely excited when they heard Lu Zi's words. If Hua Wuing came to save them because of Qin Chuan, didn't that mean that Qin Chuan was still alive? When Hua Wuing heard Lu Zi's words, her expression could not help but become complicated. She said softly, "We'll talk about this later. Let's break through first." Without waiting for Lu Zi to ask anything else, Hua Wuying suddenly shouted and threw a silver-white metal ball at the Zerg and Starry Sky in front of her. When Starry Sky saw the metal ball, he seemed to have thought of something, and his expression immediately changed. He turned around and ran outside. Rumble! The metal ball suddenly exploded when it got close to the Zerg army. An extremely terrifying vortex of spiritual energy was created in the Zerg army and almost instantly tore thousands of Zerg into pieces. Taking advantage of this opportunity, Hua Wuying rushed out of the hall with everyone and went straight to the starport. Chapter 744. Bang! Hua Wuying slammed into a spaceship parked at the starport with everyone in tow. She collapsed in the corridor of the spaceship and vomited blood repeatedly. Her aura was extremely weak. Buzz! With a buzzing sound, the spaceship that was already prepared immediately began to warp. In the blink of an eye, it disappeared from the starport, causing Zerg to miss. After the interstellar warp, the spaceship appeared in the vast starry sky. Everyone regained their senses and immediately looked at Hua Wuying, who was lying on the ground. Hua Wuying had already fainted and her aura was extremely weak. If not for the fact that she was still breathing, everyone would have thought that Hua Wuying was already dead. Get out of the way. At this moment, Lu Xing arrived with the medical staff and hurriedly carried Hua Wuying onto a stretcher and sent her to the infirmary. Everyone followed Lu Xing to the infirmary. When they saw that Hua Wuying had been sent into the infirmary and her injuries had been stabilized, everyone was relieved. Lu Xing looked at Lu Zi and the others standing in front of him and pursed his lips. "Hello, I'm Lu Xing, a member of the monitoring department." "I know you." Lu Zi stared at Lu Xing. "You were the one who took Qin Chuan away back then." LVZ could still remember the scene from all those years ago, clearly even now. Lu Xing looked at Lu Zi with a complicated gaze. "It was indeed me who took Qin Chuan away back then. Where is he now?" Lu Zi asked anxiously. "Is he on the spaceship?" Lu Zi's words could be said to be everyone's thoughts. Now that they had escaped from death, they all hoped to see Qin Chuan. Facing everyone's expectant and anxious gazes, Lu Xing could not help but show a touch of guilt on his face. He shook his head and said, "I'm sorry, Qin Chuan, he is not on the spaceship." Hearing Lu Xing's answer, Lu Zi immediately asked, "Where did he go?" Seeing that Lu Xing was silent, Chen Chongqing asked anxiously, "Where's the boss? Tell me, did something happen to him?" Lu Zi grabbed Lu Xing's collar and shouted, "What happened to him? Let me tell you." At this moment, Hua Wuying walked out of the healing pod and looked at Lu Zi with a complicated gaze. "I can tell you everything you want to know. Director, why are you out here?" When Lu Xing saw Hua Wuying walk out of the healing pod, he was immediately shocked. He said to Hua Wuying, "Director, your injuries are still very serious. You need to receive treatment as soon as possible. I know my own situation better than you do. I'm a late nascent soul stage cultivator. I won't die anytime soon." Hua Wuying pursed her lips and said in a low voice, "But there are some things that I can't feel at ease if I don't explain clearly to them." Hearing Hua Wuying's words, Lu Xing knew that it was useless to persuade her. He could only sigh helplessly and stand to the side. Hua Wuying looked at the pale and haggard Lu Zi and said softly, "My name is Hua Wuying, the director of the supervision department. You must have a certain understanding of me because of Qin Chuan." Lu Zi stared at Hua Wuying and asked, "Where is Qin Chuan?" "He is in the Sword God ruins. Maybe he is still alive. Maybe he is already dead." Hua Wuying said frankly, "I don't know how he is now." "Sword God ruins? What is that place?" Long Shao frowned and said, "We have some understanding of the ruins of the universe and the world within a world, but we have never heard of this Sword God ruins. The Sword God ruins is the place where Sword God Suina fell. It has always been a secret place that has not been explored. When we discovered the Sword God ruins, we organized an advance team to explore it. Qin Chuan was one of the members of the advance team. The situation at that time was like this. Since then, we have never entered the Sword God ruins again. We have no idea what Qinchuan's situation is like. After talking about the sword god ruins, Hua Wuing looked at everyone deeply and said, "Because of this matter, I feel that I have to bear a certain amount of responsibility for Qinchuan entering the sword god ruins. So when I found out that you guys were not among the candidates who escaped from the world within a world, I chose to break into the world within a world to save you guys. I never thought of making you guys thank me. I was just making up for the mistakes I had made." Hearing Hua Wuing talk about the whole thing, Lu Zi's eyes could not help but redden. She looked at Hua Wuing and asked, "In other words, Qinchuan was locked up in a place even more dangerous than the prison in less than a few days after he left the prison?" Hua Wuing nodded. "That is indeed the case. We can understand that you guys are worried that entering the sword god ruins again will lead to Zerg's invasion. But after so long, haven't you guys thought of any way to confirm whether Qinchuan is still alive?" Long Xiao gritted her teeth and said, "With your abilities, can't you even do this?" Lu Xing could not help but explain for Hua Wuing, "Of course we want to confirm whether Qinchuan is still alive, but those people have been blocking our information because they are worried about Qinchuan's return. They even destroyed the probing data and information about the sword god ruins. We can't do anything about it. The director has been working very hard." "Lu Xing, you have no right to speak here." Hua Wuing reprimanded Lu Xing, then turned her gaze to Long Xiao and replied, "Regardless of whether we tried hard or not, it is a fact that we can't confirm whether Qinchuan is still alive. We can't deny it. As expected of the boss, even in death, he is still protecting us." Chen Changxing choked. "Boss, you..." Chen Changxing, shut up. Long Xiao glared at Chen Changxing and said, "Qinchuan isn't dead yet. I have a way to confirm whether Qinchuan is still alive." Lu Zi seemed to have thought of something and said to everyone, "Before Qinchuan left, he left a life tablet with Teacher Ningya. As long as Qinchuan is still alive, that life tablet must still be there." Everyone's eyes lit up when they heard Lu Zi's words. As long as Qinchuan was still alive, then they still had a chance to save Qinchuan. "Our spacecraft is currently returning to the Star Dragon Federation. As soon as we reach the Star Dragon Federation, we will immediately head to the Black Moon Combat Academy," Hua Wuing said to everyone. "However, we have already used an interstellar warp to avoid Zerg's pursuit. We will need to wait until tomorrow before we can use another interstellar warp. I have already waited for almost 5 years. One more day won't make much of a difference." Lu Zi took a deep breath and said to everyone, "What I want to know now is what the current situation is like." Hearing LVZ's words, everyone looked at Hua Wuing. If there was anyone who understood the current situation of the world's air center the most, it would definitely be Hua Wuing. However, from what they had seen before, the current situation of the world's air center was clearly not good. Chapter 745. Facing everyone's gaze, Hua Wuing pursed her lips and whispered to everyone, "The center of the Kunlun field has fallen. It has been completely occupied by Zerg and has become the bridgehead for Zerg to attack us." Everyone thought that the center of the Kunlun field would still have some resistance, but they didn't expect it to have completely fallen. Everyone looked at Hua Wuing in disbelief, unable to accept this fact. "How could this be?" Long Xiao exclaimed. "How could Zerg be so strong? It's only been 3 days. How could the center of the Kunlun field have fallen?" The center of the Kunlun field had gathered such a powerful force, but it was destroyed by Zerg in just 3 days. So what if they escaped back to the Star Dragon Federation? They would only be delaying their death. Hua Wuing pursed her lips and said in a low voice, "It's not that we didn't fight back well. It's just that the insectoids were too cunning. They bribed the members of the upper house of Kunlun heirs and ambushed the chairman of Heavenly Abyss. They attacked the chairman of Heavenly Abyss from both inside and outside, and caused the chairman of Heavenly Abyss to die in the hands of the insectoids." "Traitor!" Chen Changxing scolded angrily. "As a human, you surrendered to Zerg. What's the difference between you and Qin Haoshuan?" Due to the incident with Qin Haoshuan, Chen Changxing hated the humans who had defected to the insectoids. Now that he heard Hua Wuying say that the reason why the Kunlun Air Center was defeated was because of the traitors, he was furious. The others felt the same as Chun Chongqing. They all hated the traitors. The fatty you saw blocking our way earlier is the traitor who attacked Heavenly Abyss Council Speaker. Hua Wuying gritted her teeth when she mentioned Starry Sky. If it wasn't for Starry Sky's betrayal, Zerg wouldn't have been so arrogant. I wonder how many of our strong humans survived? Bai Yu looked at Hua Wuying and asked, can they defend the Star Dragon Federation? As far as I know, 40% of the strong humans in the center of the Kunlun field died in battle. 40% returned to the Star Dragon Federation and the Demon Realm, and 20% became traitors. Hua Wuying looked at everyone and said, in terms of high-end combat power, there were 9 people in the upper house. Other than me, only 4 survived. What about Zerg? Lu Zi asked, how many high-level combatants does Zerg have? I'm not sure yet, but Hua Wuying looked at everyone and said in a deep voice, from what I know, Zerg has sent nearly 1,000 Archons. Nearly 1,000 Archons. Hearing Hua Wuying's words, everyone's expression became extremely ugly. A senator was equivalent to a Yuanying stage cultivator. Nearly 1,000 senators were equivalent to nearly 1,000 Yuanying stage cultivators. The total number of Yuanying stage cultivators in their entire world did not exceed 200. Excluding those who had died in battle, the gap between them and Zerg was like heaven and earth. There's no way to fight this. Although Chun Chongqing had always been optimistic, he could not help but feel despair at this moment. If Zerg sent nearly 1,000 senators to the battlefield, the entire Star Dragon Federation would be destroyed in less than a day. The only thing we can do now is to retreat to the Star Dragon Federation and delay Zerg's attack as much as possible while building fortifications. Then, we can think of a way to solve this problem. Hua Wuying sighed and said, originally, using the center of the Kunlun field as a strategic center to resist Zerg was the best choice. But now we've lost the center of the Kunlun field. This problem can't be solved at all. It's impossible for us to find 1,000 Yuanying stage cultivators in such a short time. Long Xiao was also a little impatient. This matter concerned everyone's life and death. It was difficult for her not to care. We can only say that we'll do our best and leave the rest to fate. Hua Wuying also knew that their so-called hard work might just be a waste of energy in the end. However, they couldn't just give up and wait for death because of this. If Boss was here, he would definitely not let this happen. Chun Chongqing whispered, he's the smartest. He must have a way to solve this problem. Hearing Chun Chongqing's words, Hua Wuying shook her head helplessly. Qin Chuan was indeed a very talented and hardworking young man, but Chun Chongqing thought that Qin Chuan could play a role in turning the tide in this disaster. He was overestimating Qin Chuan. Perhaps Qin Chuan, who stayed in the Sword God ruins, would become the last survivor of our human race. Thinking of this, Hua Wuying let out a long sigh. If everything went as she wished, then she would not have so many worries. Star Dragon Federation, Star Dragon City. Gowan stood in front of the window, looking at the flying ships that were constantly shuttling through the sky. The expression on his face could be said to be exceptionally solemn. These flying ships were all flying ships that had returned from the air center. Every flying ship was filled with people who had fled because of the Zerg invasion. At this time, the residents of Star Dragon City were still living in the illusion of singing and dancing. Little did they know that a huge crisis was coming. Whoosh! Mo Jun's figure suddenly appeared beside Gowan. He looked at the flying ships in the sky and said in a deep voice, I really didn't expect this disaster to come so soon. Gowan turned to look at Mo Jun and asked, what happened at the Black Moon Mountain Range? It's Zerg, a Zerg from 10,000 years ago. Mo Jun simply told Gao in what happened at the Black Moon Mountain Range and said in a low voice, at this critical moment, Ning Zhongtian's death is a great loss for us. Hearing Mo Jun's words, Gao In frowned and asked, do you have any guesses about the identity of the other mountain guards? Yes, but so what? Mo Jun sighed and said, it's no secret that there are still ancients alive now. They won't be afraid of us knowing. Now that Zerg is invading, we still need to borrow their strength to fight against Zerg. 100 days. We only have 100 days. Gowan clenched his fists. Those people are really regressing as they live. Don't they want to wait until Zerg invades? If they had such thoughts, we wouldn't be sighing here. Mo Jun said to Gowan, I heard that Tian Yuan is dead. Is that true? Gowan nodded and said in a low voice, Back then, you, Tian Yuan, and I graduated from the Federal Military University together. We swore to fight for the Star Dragon Federation for the rest of our lives and work hard for the rise of the human race. Now that Tian Yuan is dead, it's up to the two of us. When it's time for us old guys to go into battle, I definitely won't back down. I don't want to live like those people for the rest of my life and end up being a nobody. Mo Jun laughed heartily and said to Gao In, when Zerg invades, let me be the first to go out and experience the abilities of those Zerg. Chapter 746. Buzz. Accompanied by a slight vibration, the flying ship successfully broke through the atmosphere and arrived above the Star Dragon Federation. Lu Zi and the others stood in front of the porthole, looking at the familiar continent below, but there was not much joy in their eyes. We're back. It's been almost 5 years since we left. Chun Changxing looked at the land outside the window and sighed. 5 years have passed, things are still the same, but people have changed. When they set off for the air center, it could be said that they were in high spirits, full of yearning and expectation for the future, but reality was cruel. In the end, only the 4 of them were able to safely return to the starting point. I wonder how Yao Rao and the others are doing. Did they safely return to the demon realm? Long Shao looked at Lu Xing not far away and asked, Do you know the situation in the demon realm? The Yao Rao you just mentioned should be the princess of the demon realm, right? Don't worry, she's doing well. Lu Xing said to everyone. Before the air center fell, she was sent back to the demon realm, and with her, there were many children of the demon realm's nobles. Presumably your friends should be among them. When everyone heard Lu Xing's answer, they felt relieved. However, whenever they thought about Shiyu, they would feel extremely sad. Well, now is not the time to be sad. Hua Wuying slowly walked over. She calmly looked at the crowd and said, You are now the mainstays of our Star Dragon Federation. You are our future hope. If even you are dispirited, then our Star Dragon Federation is hopeless. Seniors, right we look? What is that? Suddenly, Chun Changxing exclaimed, pointing at the huge red mountain outside the window. His eyes were full of horror. Everyone subconsciously turned to look in the direction that Chun Changxing was pointing at. When they saw the gigantic creature, everyone's eyes were filled with shock. That is Zerg, Long Shao said in disbelief. How can it be so huge? Looking at the red beetle in the distance, Hua Wuying's eyes were extremely solemn and said to everyone in a deep voice, It is indeed Zerg, but he seems to be sealed. That should be the Black Moon Mountain Range, right? Bai Yu frowned. The mountain is gone. The people who were still amazed by the huge Zerg were stunned when they heard Bai Yu's words. The Black Moon Mountain Range was gone? That's the Elf City. The Black Moon Mountains are really gone. Chun Changxing exclaimed again. The Black Moon Mountains should have been under Zerg's feet. If the Black Moon Mountain Range is gone, what about the school? Where are the teachers? Long Shao asked worriedly. Could something have happened to everyone? Don't worry, we'll know when we ask in the Elf City. Lu Zi comforted everyone. Since Zerg has been sealed, it means that it's not a big problem. Was it really not a big problem? From the fact that the Black Moon Mountain Range was almost flattened, it could be seen how serious and dangerous this matter was. But Lu Zi couldn't do anything other than comfort everyone in this way. Everyone knew that Lu Zi was just comforting them, but they still couldn't help but worry in their hearts. However, they maintained their basic calmness on the surface. There were too many problems and troubles that they had to face now, and they didn't want to add to everyone's troubles. Flying ship in front. We are the Star Dragon Federation's Air Traffic Control Unit. Please report your serial number and clear your identity, or we will sink you. At this moment, an extremely loud shout sounded in everyone's ears. Only then did everyone notice that several military flying ships had appeared around their flying ship, and they had already surrounded them and were ready to fire. I am Hua Wuying, a member of the Air Center's upper house. This is the flying ship of the Air Center's monitoring department. How can I prove my identity to you? Hua Wuying's figure flashed and suddenly appeared in the air outside the flying ship, facing the cannon of the military flying ship fearlessly. Please wait for a moment. A reply came from the military flying ship. Soon, a figure appeared in front of Hua Wuying. It was another member of the upper house, Sha Zhao. Seeing Sha Zhao, Hua Wuying's gaze couldn't help but become complicated. She whispered to Sha Zhao, I didn't like you at first, but I didn't expect that in the end, those seemingly docile fellows would choose to betray the human race. You actually persevered. Hearing Hua Wuying's words, Sha Zhao laughed and said to Hua Wuying, I can accept internal strife, but in the situation where we're surrounded by strong enemies, I will definitely turn my spearhead to the external enemy. Welcome back. Thank you. After thanking him, Hua Wuying looked at the huge Zerg in the distance and asked, What's going on? Sha Zhao turned back to look at the huge beetle and said to Hua Wuying, He's called Kagid, a general of Zerg's Crimson Army. He was sealed here during the invasion war 10,000 years ago. Recently, he broke the seal and was then sealed again by Ning Zhongtian. Hearing Sha Zhao mention Ning Zhongtian, Hua Wuying was a little surprised. Ning Zhongtian has this ability? Sha Zhao sighed and said to Hua Wuying, It's a little complicated. Ning Zhongtian does have this ability, but the price he has to pay to seal this big guy is his life. And this seal only lasts for 100 days. Ning Zhongtian used his own sacrifice to buy us 100 days. If it wasn't for his sacrifice, when we retreated to the Star Dragon Federation, we would have seen a human race on the verge of extinction. Hearing this, Hua Wuying looked at Sha Zhao in shock and asked, Ning Zhongtian is dead? Sha Zhao nodded. If he didn't die, Kagid wouldn't have been sealed again. Zerg is despicable. Hua Wuying gritted her teeth and said, The traitor is even more despicable than Zerg. Every time she saw someone sacrificing themselves for the survival of the human race and thought of those who betrayed the human race without caring about etiquette and honor, an unquenchable anger would surge in her heart. She really hated those traitors. Starry Sky, Su Baijiang, if I see those two again in the future, I will definitely kill them. Sha Zhao snorted. If it wasn't for the two of them purposely creating chaos and deceiving Chairman Tian Yuan, we wouldn't have been defeated so easily. There were a total of 9 members in the upper house. 5 of them were from the human race, and the 2 traitors were from the human race. This made Sha Zhao feel extremely humiliated. He would never be able to face his former friends in the shifter race again. Hearing this, Hua Wuying asked, What's the situation on the shifter race's side? Qian Yuan and Kong Ming are still alive, but Zhu Hong and Hu Feng are dead. Hearing Sha Zhao's answer, Hua Wuying couldn't help but let out a long sigh. There were only 4 of them left in the upper house. Chapter 747. At this moment, Lu Zi and the rest were allowed to move freely after passing through the air traffic control team's inspection. After greeting Lu Xing, they hurriedly flew towards the Elven City, eager to find out more about the situation at the Black Moon Combat Academy. When they arrived at the Elven City, they headed straight for the Black Moon Combat Academy's office. The staff member on duty at the entrance of the office was stunned when he saw Lu Zi and the rest, but he was pleasantly surprised. You're still alive? That's great. Hearing the staff member's cheers, Lu Zi immediately asked, What's the situation at the academy? The staff member replied, The academy has been destroyed, but everyone is fine and alive. It's just that, at this point, the staff member's face could not help but reveal a sorrowful expression. He said to the group, The old dean has fallen, and Teacher Ning is currently unconscious. Everyone was shocked when they heard this. The old dean had fallen. While everyone was still in shock, Su Yuluo's figure suddenly appeared at the entrance of the office. She looked at the group and said, Follow me. Seeing Su Yuluo appear, the group immediately followed her into the office. However, They had only taken 2 steps when Su Yuluo stopped. She turned her head to look at the group and asked with some confusion, "Where's Qin Chuan? Why isn't he with you?" When the group heard Su Yuluo mention Qin Chuan, their expressions became extremely sad. If possible, they also hoped to return with Qin Chuan. Seeing the expressions on everyone's faces, Su Yuluo's expression changed slightly. She asked, "Did something happen to Qin Chuan?" Lu Zi nodded, but then shook her head. "We've lost contact with Qin Chuan. He's in a place that might be very safe or very dangerous. We don't know if he's dead or alive. However, Teacher Ning has Qin Chuan's life tablet, so she should be able to determine if Qin Chuan is dead or alive." "Indeed." One wave after another, Yi Zichen said. Su Yuluo pursed her lips and said, "Qin Chuan's life tablet should be in Ningya's storage ring. Now that Ningya is unconscious, we can't take out the life tablet to know if Qin Chuan is alive or dead." Hearing Su Yuluo's words, everyone's expression turned a little ugly. They thought that they would be able to confirm Qin Chuan's life after seeing Ningya when they returned to the Star Dragon Federation. But reality slapped them hard in the face. Ningya was unconscious, and they still couldn't confirm Qin Chuan's life. The old dean has died, Qin Chuan's whereabouts are unknown, the air center has fallen, and Mr. Ning is unconscious. The news we've received recently is getting worse and worse. Is there no good news to cheer us up? Long Zhao's expression was bitter. Why is our life so difficult? Su Yuluo sighed and said to the crowd, "Let's not talk about this for now. Let me take you to see Ningya." Su Yuluo led everyone to the infirmary where Ningya was. They saw the unconscious Ningya in a special healing pod. "Miss Su, why isn't there any healing fluid in Mr. Ning's healing pod?" Chen Changxing was puzzled. "Is this a new treatment method?" Su Yuluo shook her head and said to everyone, "This isn't a new treatment method. It's just that we can't use healing fluid on Ningya. Take a look at this." While speaking, Su Yuluo placed a human scan in front of everyone. She pointed at some red dots on the scan and said to everyone, "These are eggs. Simply put, they are Zerg that haven't hatched yet." Hearing Su Yuluo's words, Chen Changxing was a little surprised. "Is this Mr. Ning?" Su Yuluo nodded and said to everyone, "Ningya was attacked by Kargad, and then these eggs appeared in her body. If we use healing fluid to treat Ningya, it will definitely speed up the hatching of these eggs. We don't know what kind of effect these Zerg will have on Ningya when they hatch, so we don't dare to act rashly." Long Xiao frowned and said, "Who is Kargad?" Su Yuluo took a deep look at everyone and replied, "You should have already seen him. He's the big guy that was sealed." Hearing Su Yuluo's answer, everyone couldn't help but gasp. So the huge red-shelled insect outside was Kargad. Kargad is very powerful. Even if the old dean sacrificed himself, he could only temporarily seal Kargad. If we can't find a way to deal with Kargad within 100 days, then what awaits us is destruction. Su Yuluo paused for a moment and added, "To be exact, we still have 98 days. 98 days. For a cultivator, 98 days might pass after a single seclusion. It was simply too short. We're really facing constant internal and external troubles now." Lu Zi pursed her lips and asked, "Teacher, is there no one who can treat Mr. Ning's current condition?" Su Yuluo shook her head and replied, "Even the military's martial emo June can't do anything about it. All we can do now is to pray for a miracle." Hearing Su Yuluo's answer, Lu Zi asked again, "How's my grandfather now?" Su Yuluo replied, "Your grandfather's doing very well now. He's been assigned to the air traffic control team and should be carrying out a mission now." Su Yuluo's answer finally made Lu Zi's nervous heart relax a little. This was probably the only good news Lu Zi had heard during this period of time. Who knew how much more bad news awaited her in the future? What should we do now? Long Xiao looked at Su Yuluo. "I want to go home and take a look. Zerg's invasion could come at any time." Long Xiao, who had been away from home for many years, really wanted to see her family and reunite with them. Perhaps this would be the last time they would be reunited. "I also want to go home and take a look." Chen Changxing looked lonely. "I want to see my grandfather and my father." Hearing everyone's words, Su Yuluo sighed and said, I can understand your feelings, but now that Star Dragon City is under full martial law, not everyone can enter. I will make arrangements for you, but I can't be sure if it will work. Anyway, thank you very much, teacher. Everyone thanked Su Yuluo and turned their eyes to Ningya in the healing pod. At this moment, they suddenly felt that the whole world had become extremely strange. They were no longer talented youths who could cultivate without worries, but adults who had to shoulder the responsibility of protecting the country. Those who used to hold up the sky for them were now either dead, missing, or in a coma. They could only rely on themselves now. Chapter 748. As night fell, the lively city of elves fell into silence. Everyone sat on the rooftops and looked at the flying ship that was constantly patrolling around Kargad in the sky. Their eyes were filled with confusion. In the past, Qinchuan was their backbone. They did not need to think or make any decisions. They only needed to follow in Qinchuan's footsteps and move forward. After entering the air center, Qinchuan was taken away by the monitoring department. There was no news of him for 3 years. They worked hard to cultivate in the world within a world, thinking that they had grown and trained. However, when disaster struck without warning, they realized that their growth was still too slow. In the midst of danger, they still had to rely on Qinchuan to be saved. Now, in the face of a series of bad news and crises, they realized that they could not do anything. They had already lost all sense of propriety in the chaos. I really missed the time when we just entered the school. We did not need to think about anything. We only needed to cultivate in peace and follow in Boss's footsteps. No matter what danger or difficulty we encountered, Boss would always step forward and help each and every one of us get through it. Those were really the happiest days of my life. Chen Changxing looked at the bright moon in the sky. He missed the past very much and hated the present. Chen Changxing could be said to have said what everyone was thinking. They really missed the past. Every day was very relaxed and happy. It was not like now, where they could face the sentence of death at any time. We should pull ourselves together. Qinchuan will not die so easily. Luzi looked up at the starry sky. He must be waiting for us silently in some corner. When we get through this, we will go find him. He has helped us so many times. We should help him once. Yes, we should pull ourselves together. Long Zhao's lips curled up slightly. The sky has not fallen yet. We rumble. A violent roar came from afar, waking up the quiet city of elves. That's the air traffic control team is under attack. Chen Changxing looked at the flying ship in the distance that was emitting thick smoke as it fell from the sky towards the ground. He said in shock, Is Zerg invading? I don't know. Let's go take a look. Luzi made a prompt decision. She got up and flew in the direction of the accident. The others followed closely behind. Everyone was extremely nervous and uneasy. Just as Lu Zi and the others set off, the temporary command center of the Elf City's air traffic control team had also received a report. This was a premeditated attack, and the other party's goal was to rescue the sealed Kargad. Kargad seal must not have any problems. Sha Zhao wore a stern face and lowered his voice. Once Kargad is released, we're done for. Let's do it. Hua Wuying frowned as she looked at the huge figure in the distance. We have to stop Zerg even if we have to die. You haven't recovered from your injuries yet, so it's not good for you to fight now. I'll go. Sha Zhao talked to Hua Wuying calmly. You stay here to command. I will handle the front line. If I die, you will replace me. All right. Hua Wuying did not say much and agreed. Now is not the time to argue about this. Moreover, the situation might not be so serious that they had to fight together. Her previous suggestion was just to be safe. Sha Zhao did not say anything else. He brought the mobile troops and went straight to the place of the accident. Lu Zi and the others quickly left the Elf City and arrived near the spaceship that had landed. Just as they were about to help save the people, a Zerg squad suddenly appeared in the sky and rushed towards them. Chen Changxing saw this and immediately went up to meet them. While he was rushing towards the Zerg soldiers, a golden battle armor suddenly appeared behind him. He took the opportunity to lie down and entered the battle armor's cockpit naturally. The moment the cockpit closed, the Zerg soldiers had also arrived. Golden Storm. Chen Chongqing shouted angrily. His body that was piloting the battle armor suddenly spun and rushed towards the Zerg soldiers like a spinning top. The powerful impact and cutting force instantly cut a Zerg soldier that was caught off guard into pieces. On the other side, Lu Zi and the others had also entered battle mode. They piloted their own battle armor and rushed towards the other Zerg soldiers. Under their tacit cooperation, the Zerg soldiers were quickly dealt with. However, no one was happy about the victory because there were more Zerg soldiers in the distance. "Let's go and support the air traffic control team," Lu Zi said to the others. "We must kill them." Zerg's mothership. Yuri stood on the deck and looked at the ground under his feet with a deep and cold gaze. Only when his gaze landed on the sealed Kagid would his eyes show a hint of respect. It's been almost 10,000 years, and the Supreme General is still alive. This is really something to be happy about. Yuri sighed. "Our Crimson Army is about to rise again. Your Excellency, Great Governor, our vanguard troops have encountered stubborn resistance from the humans. We can't get close to the Supreme General." A tall and muscular man in red Zerg armor slowly walked over and said to Yuri, "Meng Mai requests to join the battle." Yuri turned to look at Meng Mai and nodded. "Go, my brave warrior. Don't disappoint me. Remember to teach these humans a lesson and awaken the fear in their hearts." Meng Mai nodded solemnly. "I won't disappoint you." Whoosh! Lu Zi piloted the Love and flashed past several Zerg soldiers. The movements of the Zerg soldiers immediately became stiff. The next moment, Chen Chongqing and the others rushed over and beheaded them one by one. "Lu Zi is too fast." Baiyu frowned and looked at Lu Zi, who was charging at the front. They could only barely keep up with Lu Zi's speed. If Lu Zi continued like this, they would probably be left behind. "I can see that she's in a bad mood. Let's try our best," Chen Chongqing said to Baiyu. "Everyone, relax a little. We're only facing normal Zerg soldiers now. We should conserve some of our strength." Baiyu frowned. "If we encounter a strong enemy, something will happen. Baiyu's considerations are reasonable. We should still be careful." Long Shao looked around. "I don't think Zerg will only send out some small fries." Just as everyone was talking, a red meteor suddenly fell from the sky. It charged toward Lu Zi, who was piloting the Love at an extremely fast speed. Everyone was shocked when they saw this, but it was too late to stop it. Bang! The red meteor and purple lightning collided, and an earth-shattering explosion erupted. Chapter 749. Amidst the roar, an extremely fast purple lightning bolt rushed out of the intense flames and quickly pulled away. However, at this moment, the red meteor also rushed out of the flames produced by the explosion and chased after it. At this time, everyone could finally see clearly that what fell from the sky was not a red meteor, but Zerg in red armor. "Where do you think you're going?" Meng Mai looked at Lu Zi not far in front of him with disdain and sneered. Just as he was about to catch up to Lu Zi's figure suddenly split into two and fled in two different directions. Seeing this scene, Meng Mai still sneered and said disdainfully, "Insignificant skill." Meng Mai raised his hand and waved, and two red rays of light shot towards the two figures. It didn't matter if the opponent was a clone or the real body. He would kill them all. The red light streaked across the sky and caught up with the two fleeing figures, ruthlessly piercing through their bodies. However, an incomparably strange thing happened. The two figures that were pierced actually flickered and disappeared at the same time. Fake bodies. Both of them were fake bodies. By the time Meng Mai realized this, LVZ's figure had appeared behind him in an extremely strange manner. A strong sense of crisis made Meng Mai immediately turn around to counterattack. But to Meng Mai's shock, the one who appeared behind him this time was also a fake body. Amidst a violent buzzing sound, the cross-wavy blade soared ruthlessly stabbed into Meng Mai's red armor. Originally, LVZ had wanted to kill Meng Mai in one blow. However, The defensive power of Meng Mai's crimson armor had exceeded her expectations. The cross-wavy blade sword had only left a shallow mark on Meng Mai's armor. It hadn't been able to cause much damage to Meng Mai. With no other choice, LVZ could only regretfully increase the distance between her and Meng Mai, vigilantly watching out for a possible counterattack. Meng Mai slowly turned around and looked at Lu Zi. His face was filled with shame and anger. He had actually been played by an ant. At this moment, Chun Chongqing and the others had also arrived. They all stood beside Lu Zi and looked at Lu Zi in amazement. Previously, they thought that Lu Zi would be in danger under Meng Mai's pursuit. However, Lu Zi's exquisite response made them exclaim in admiration. So cool. Clones after clones, playing the other party in circles. Chun Chongqing said to Lu Zi excitedly, I feel like he's going to faint from your show. You're really good at showing off, but it's also really dangerous. Baiyu glanced at Lu Zi. You should be more careful. It was too dangerous just now. We were all worried for you. Long Xiao looked at Lu Zi. Don't do it again. Hearing everyone's words, Lu Zi nodded slightly and said in a low voice, Sorry, I made you all worry. Lu Zi also knew that her previous situation was very dangerous. If she had made the slightest mistake, she might have died in Meng Mai's hands. Shouldn't you guys be done chatting? Meng Mai's low voice sounded in everyone's ears. He stared coldly at Lu Zi, and his killing intent was piercingly cold. He hated the feeling of being used as a backdrop. Hearing Meng Mai's words, everyone's conversation ended. They all looked at Meng Mai. Facing Meng Mai, whose aura was obviously as strong as a nascent soul, they didn't have much confidence in defeating him. After all, the gap between their realms was there. It was unrealistic to cross this gap easily. The opponent seems to be a console-level expert of Zerg. The few of us. Chun Chongqing looked at Meng Mai vigilantly. Should we retreat while fighting and wait for reinforcements to arrive before fighting to the death? Retreat? Why should we retreat? Lu Zi looked deeply at Chun Chongqing and asked, Why? Are you afraid? I'm not afraid. I just think we should be rational. Chun Chongqing explained. How can I be afraid? The men of the Chun family will never be afraid in the face of an enemy. Are you guys afraid? Lu Zi looked at the others and asked, Who's afraid? If we were afraid, we wouldn't be here. Long Xiao chuckled and said to Lu Zi, If you have anything to say, just say it. I don't want to say anything, but I want you to do something. Lu Zi pointed at Meng Mai and said coldly, Let's kill him together. If it was in the past, everyone would think that Lu Zi was too arrogant. But in this era of war, those who were afraid of death were often the first to die. On the contrary, those who bravely moved forward would live to the end. Zerg had nearly 1,000 console, and they might encounter console in the future. Did they have to run away every time they encountered a console? If they didn't try, how would they know if they couldn't? Do it. Baiyu was as simple and straightforward as ever. She only had one word, do it. Whoosh. Without waiting for the others to do anything, Baiyu had already charged at Meng Mai. Driving her armor like a shooting star, she moved behind Meng Mai at an extremely exaggerated speed and stabbed the spear in her hand into Meng Mai's back. At the same time, the others also moved. Chun Chongqing attacked Meng Mai's left side. Long Xiao rushed to the right, and Lu Zi was responsible for facing Meng Mai head-on. Seeing everyone's actions, Meng Mai's expression immediately became angry. He felt that he had been humiliated. A few ant-like fellows actually wanted to ride on top of his head and abuse him. Boom! Meng Mai swung his fist forward, and a terrifying force transformed into a powerful force that blasted Lu Zi back. After that, he attacked from the left and right, and he blasted Long Xiao and Chun Chongqing back respectively. At this moment, Baiyu's spear just happened to stab Meng Mai, but it wasn't able to cause any harm to Meng Mai at all. It wasn't even able to make Meng Mai move at all. Bang! Meng Mai turned around and threw a punch at Baiyu. Baiyu blocked it with her spear while borrowing the force of the attack to retreat. However, Meng Mai did not give up and chased after her. It seemed that he intended to start with Baiyu. Bai Yu's figure flickered repeatedly in the face of Meng Mai's pursuit. However, Meng Mai was too fast and did not give Bai Yu the chance to do so at all. Just as Meng Mai's attack was about to arrive, an illusory, purple starry sky suddenly appeared before Meng Mai's eyes, causing him to be momentarily stunned. When he came back to his senses, he noticed that Bai Yu had retreated extremely far away and had lost the best opportunity to attack. Meng Mai couldn't help but fly into a rage out of humiliation. "It must be you again." Meng Mai turned to look at Lu Zi and roared repeatedly. He really hated this woman who had played him like a fool. "Huh!" Meng Mai roared furiously and released all the strength in his body. He did not intend to continue this game. He wanted to crush all these ants before him to death with absolute strength. Chapter 750. Seeing Meng Mai charging at her, Lu Zi turned around and ran. She knew what her advantage was. Facing Meng Mai head-on was no different from courting death. When Meng Mai saw that Lu Zi wanted to run, he immediately waved his hand and shot an energy wave at Lu Zi. The energy wave approached Lu Zi at an extremely fast speed. Lu Zi's figure instantly split into two. After the energy wave passed between the two figures merged back together as if the previous split was just an illusion. It was extremely strange. Although Lu Zi managed to dodge Meng Mai's attack with this miraculous skill, Meng Mai had already appeared behind Lu Zi with his advantage in speed. He opened his mouth and spat out a ball of red mucus at Lu Zi. The mucus turned into a huge net in the air and enveloped Lu Zi. The huge net completely sealed off Lu Zi's left and right. Even if Lu Zi split again, she would not be able to escape from the net's range. Just when Meng Mai thought that his attack would definitely kill Lu Zi's figure suddenly flickered and disappeared. Seeing this, Meng Mai was stunned for a moment. Then, his face turned extremely gloomy. "Idiot! Why would you fall for it a second time after falling for it once?" Lu Zi's cold voice sounded behind Meng Mai. She aimed her sniper rifle at the wound on Meng Mai's back that she had previously stabbed with her sword and fired a shot. The bullet relied on its astonishing strength and speed to penetrate Meng Mai's armor. The moment it entered Meng Mai's body, it suddenly exploded and turned into a light energy that invaded Meng Mai's body. Even with Meng Mai's strong body, he felt extreme pain at this moment. He could not help but groan. However, although the damage caused by the light energy bullet to Meng Mai's body was limited, this kind of thing had a huge impact on Meng Mai's spirit. He was almost completely consumed by anger. "Ant!" Meng Mai roared angrily. He turned around and threw a punch at Lu Zi. However, Lu Zi had already dodged far away and did not give Meng Mai a chance to attack. The feeling of all his strength hitting empty air made Meng Mai tremble in anger, as if he was about to explode. At this time, Long Xiao and Qin Changxing were constantly harassing Meng Mai from afar. They interfered with Meng Mai's pursuit of Lu Zi so that Lu Zi could calmly retreat and look for the second perfect opportunity to strike. The successive battles made Meng Mai realize one thing. Although the strength of these ants was much weaker than him, they were flexible enough. Moreover, their numbers were large enough. If they only harassed him and used a war of attrition to wear him down bit by bit, it was very likely that he would be worn down to death. He had to control the rhythm of this battle. He could not continue to be so passive. After understanding this, Meng Mai's state of mind immediately changed. He was no longer affected by the previous matter. He changed his target of attack from Lu Zi to Qin Changxing. He decided to attack the weakest one first. However, on the surface, Meng Mai still maintained the appearance of continuing to chase after Lu Zi, looking for a chance to strike. Seeing Meng Mai rushing towards her, Lu Zi said to everyone, "His target is still me. This is not right." In LVZ's opinion, if she were Meng Mai, she would definitely not treat her as the primary target of attack. Instead, she would focus on the others and attack fiercely. Temporarily ignoring her was the most correct decision. But Meng Mai's current behavior seemed to be planning to fight to the death with her. Could it be that she was really blinded by anger? He must be blinded by anger. Chen Changxing smiled. You deliberately gave him an opening and let him think that he has an opportunity to take advantage of. Chen Changxing stopped before he could finish his words. Meng Mai's figure suddenly turned back and appeared in front of him almost instantly. Bang! Meng Mai's iron fist slammed into Chen Changxing's chest. A powerful force surged out instantly, penetrating Chen Changxing's armor in the blink of an eye and hitting Chen Changxing's chest at the same time. Chen Changxing immediately fell straight to the ground after suffering this critical blow. Meng Mai raised his hand and waved out a wave of energy, causing Chen Changxing's armor to explode in the air like a brilliant firework. Changxing. Seeing Chen Changxing being attacked by Meng Mai, everyone exclaimed. However, it was too late for them to save Chen Changxing at this time. They had paid a painful price for underestimating Meng Mai. Long Xiao, you go rescue Changxing. Bai Yu and I will hold Meng Mai back. Lu Zi made a decision almost instantly and took the initiative to rush toward Meng Mai. At the same time, Bai Yu rushed toward Meng Mai from the other side. She fired her laser gun repeatedly to restrict Meng Mai's movements and prevent him from continuing to attack Chen Changxing. When Meng Mai saw Lu Zi and Bai Yu rushing toward him, he could not help but sneer. He completely ignored Lu Zi and Bai Yu and even took Bai Yu's attacks head-on as he rushed toward Long Xiao. Long Xiao sensed the danger behind him and immediately accelerated to increase the distance between them. However, Meng Mai did not want to give Long Xiao the chance. At this moment, a purple star suddenly appeared in front of Meng Mai, blocking his vision. Meng Mai, who had already suffered from this move once, closed his eyes almost as soon as the purple star appeared. Then, he suddenly turned around and rushed toward Bai Yu at high speed. From the beginning, his target was not Long Xiao, but Bai Yu, who came to rescue him. The moment Meng Mai changed his direction of attack, Bai Yu realized that something was wrong. However, she did not intend to retreat. Instead, she raised her spear and faced Meng Mai head-on. She poured all her strength into the spear and stabbed it toward Meng Mai's heart. Meng Mai didn't take Bai Yu's counterattack to heart. He didn't think that Bai Yu's spear could pierce through his chest. However, just as this thought appeared in his mind, a great sense of danger suddenly descended upon him. Bang! A thumb-sized light energy bullet hit his chest. Then, Bai Yu's spear pierced through the gap left by the bullet and ruthlessly stabbed into his heart. Puchi! The spear pierced through Meng Mai's armor almost without any resistance. Just when Bai Yu thought that she could kill Meng Mai in one hit, Meng Mai's body suddenly expanded and turned into a huge red beetle. Dong! The red-shelled insect slammed into Bai Yu's body, sending her flying. The spear that was supposed to pierce through Meng Mai's heart didn't complete its mission. It was stuck between the carapace and couldn't go any further. Meng Mai's chest had almost been pierced through, and she had completely lost her mind. She screamed at the crowd, "I'm going to kill you all. All of you will die. All of you will die." Chapter 751. Meng Mai's strength made Lu Zi feel despair. The four of them had been training in the center of the Kunlun field for many years, and their teamwork was incomparable. The four of them together were definitely not inferior to any early nascent soul cultivator. However, the four of them had put in all their effort, but they could only cause insignificant damage to Meng Mai. Any powerful attack would be neutralized by Meng Mai. It was simply despairing. At this moment, Meng Mai had revealed his true form, and his strength had increased exponentially. Now that they had lost Chen Changxing, wanting to fight Meng Mai with the strength of 3 people was tantamount to throwing an egg at a rock. At this moment, Lu Zi was already thinking of retreating. If they continued to fight, they would definitely die. Just as Lu Zi was thinking about this, Chen Changxing's voice suddenly sounded from the built-in voice device of the battle armor. "Lu Zi, let's use that move. The move we prepared for Shangwan Yuan Hao." Hearing Chen Changxing's words, Lu Zi was pleasantly surprised. "Changxing, are you all right?" "Haha, I'm just a little injured. I won't die." Chen Changxing laughed and coughed twice. He said to Lu Zi, "Make up your mind. I can't hold on for too long. LVZ couldn't help but glance at the nearby Meng Mai when she heard this. As she gazed at Meng Mai's arrogant appearance, she gritted her teeth fiercely and said to everyone, "Use that move and test its might on this fellow first." As soon as Lu Zi's voice fell, Bai Yu, Long Xiao, and Qin Chongqing immediately took action. They rushed to Meng Mai's four sides, surrounding him from the north, south, east, and west. Meng Mai saw this scene and sneered disdainfully. He asked, "You want to continue to surround me? Don't you think it's funny?" At this moment, Meng Mai had revealed his true form and displayed his full strength. Even if four nascent soul cultivators surrounded him, it would be very difficult to kill him on the spot, let alone four golden core cultivators. Therefore, he was not afraid of being surrounded by Lu Zi and the others. Instead, he looked at Lu Zi and the others with a relaxed expression, wanting to see what tricks they could play. At this moment, Meng Mai didn't know how much pain and regret his relaxed attitude would bring him in the future. "Are you ready?" Lu Zi took a deep breath and locked her gaze on Meng Mai. At the same time, she gathered all her strength into her palms. "Ready!" Long Xiao and the other two answered Lu Zi in unison. At the same time, like Lu Zi, they gathered all their strength into their palms. Hearing everyone's answer, Lu Zi bellowed, "Four stars heavenly celestial formation. Form!" Following Lu Zi's command, Lu Zi and the other three almost simultaneously extended their palms towards the two people who were close to each other. The strength they gathered in their palms surged out and turned into a straight line that intersected in the air, forming a huge square with Meng Mai as the center. When the square formed, a dazzling golden light suddenly erupted from Lu Zi and the others, then turned into a light pillar as thick as a water bucket and shot towards Meng Mai, who was in the center. No! At this time, Meng Mai realized that something was wrong, but it was too late for him to do anything. The golden beam of light that exuded a majestic aura like that of a god had already shot into his body. It easily penetrated his body without any hindrance, completely igniting his body, turning him into a golden fireball in an instant. Under the burning of the golden flames, Meng Mai opened his mouth and let out an extremely painful cry. He wanted to break out of the encirclement, but no matter which direction he tried to break out, he would always be blocked by the square formed by Lu Zi and the others. It could be said that there was no way out. "I can't accept this." Meng Mai opened his mouth and let out a final roar of regret. His huge body turned into nothingness under the burning of the golden flames, completely disappearing from this world. Heroes. The heroes are back. Lu Zi and the others sat on the airship and listened to the enthusiastic cheers from the Elven City. A touch of relief appeared on their tired faces. On the battlefield, under the gaze of countless people, the four of them worked together to kill Meng Mai with the four-star celestial formation. Not only did they deal a blow to Zerg's morale, but they also raised the morale of the human army and laid the foundation for victory in this somewhat difficult defensive battle. They also became the greatest contributors to the victory of this battle, the heroes praised by the people. Are they shouting for us? Qin Chongqing, who was wrapped up from head to toe like a mummy, smiled and said to everyone, "We're so awesome. We actually worked together to kill a Zerg Archon." "Yeah, it really wasn't easy." Long Xiao sighed and said, "If it wasn't for the four-star celestial formation, we would have died miserably. If that guy wasn't overconfident and gave us an opportunity to take advantage of, we might not have one so easily." Lu Zi pursed her lips and said in a low voice, "And a lot of people saw this battle. Our ultimate killing move, the four-star celestial formation, will definitely be known by a lot of people." The four-star celestial formation was an ancient formation that Lu Zi and the others found in a space ruin while exploring the ruins of the universe. After obtaining this formation, they didn't announce it to the outside world. Instead, they had been secretly practicing it, with the goal of one day using this formation to help Qin Xuan kill Shangguan Yuanhao. Yeah, if Shangguan Yuanhao is still alive, he will definitely get the news. If we face him in the future, we might not be able to use this 4-star celestial formation smoothly. Qin Changxing smiled, but there's nothing to regret. Our original plan was to kill that old bastard for boss if something happened to him. But now that boss might still be alive, the matter of revenge will naturally have to be done by boss himself. When the time comes, all we have to do is cheer him on from the side. Hearing Qin Changxing mention Qin Chuan, Bai said in a low voice, if Qin Chuan sees our performance, he will definitely be very pleased. When everyone heard Bai Yu's words, their originally happy mood couldn't help but become a little heavy. Now that Qin Chuan's life was unknown, even if Qin Chuan was still alive, they didn't know how long it would take for them to reunite with Qin Chuan again. All right, everyone, cheer up. Don't be so gloomy. LVZ smiled faintly and said to everyone, we just won a battle, so we should be happy. Indeed, we should be happy. At this moment, Su Yiluo's figure suddenly appeared in the hall. She looked at the tired faces of Lu Zi and the others and smiled, saying to everyone, I brought you good news. Perhaps you will be very happy after hearing it. Qin Chuan is still alive. Chapter 752. Qin Chuan is still alive. When they heard the news from Su Yiluo, a look of ecstasy immediately appeared on everyone's faces. Teacher Su, is what you said true? Lu Zi stood up excitedly. Qin Chuan is really still alive? You didn't lie to us? Boss is still alive, haha. Qin Changxing laughed loudly. I knew boss wouldn't die. Looking at the excited crowd, Su Yiluo nodded. Qin Chuan is indeed still alive. I have no reason to lie to you. Did Teacher Ning wake up and see the life tablet? Long Xiao said happily. Teacher Ning woke up. This is also good news. It's double happiness. Hearing Long Xiao mention Ningya, Su Yiluo sighed and shook her head. I'm sorry to disappoint you. Ningya didn't wake up. I can confirm that Qin Chuan is still alive because I met someone who can confirm that Qin Chuan is still alive. Lu Zi's heart skipped a beat. She asked, Teacher Su, did you meet Senior Hui Tong? That's right. It was Senior Hui Tong. Su Yiluo looked at Lu Zi in surprise. You know Senior Hui Tong? Lu Zi nodded and said to Su Yiluo, I once spent some time with Qin Chuan and Senior Hui Tong in West Sand City. I remember now. I think there was such a thing. Su Yiluo smiled and said to Lu Zi, although I don't know how Senior Hui Tong is sure that Qin Chuan is still alive, he doesn't look like he's lying. Teacher Su, where is Senior Hui Tong? I want to see him. Lu Zi looked at Su Yiluo. I have many questions to ask him. Senior Hui Tong should be at the Air Traffic Control Command Center in Elf City. You can go find him when you return. Su Yiluo glanced at Lu Zi. But are you sure you want to go there in such a hurry? I suggest you rest first. There's no need to rest. Lu Zi shook her head. I can rest any time, but there are some things that I really can't wait any longer. After the airship returned to the Elven City's airport, Lu Zi immediately took a shuttle to the Air Traffic Control Command Center while the others returned to the Black Moon Combat Academy's office to recuperate. After arriving at the Air Traffic Control Command Center, Lu Zi easily passed through the heavy guards. In the reception room, she saw the Hui Tong that she had not seen for many years. The Hui Tong still looked the same. It did not seem to have changed at all. Senior, when Lu Zi saw the Hui Tong, she impatiently asked, Can you confirm where Qin Chuan is now? In response to Lu Zi's question, the Hui Tong shook his head. I can confirm that Qin Chuan is still alive because he has the bloodline of a true dragon. He has a certain connection with Senior Tsang Hao. If Qin Chuan died, Senior Tsang Hao would have sensed it no matter how far away he was. Since Senior Tsang Hao did not sense anything, then Qin Chuan must still be alive. As for where Qin Chuan is now, I don't know. I also want to know what is going on. Ever since Qin Chuan had gone to the air center, the Hui Tong had stayed in the Dragon Spirit Lake to cultivate. He had only come out of the mountain when Zerg had attacked yesterday. Then he had met Su Yiluo. After a simple chat, he had told her that Qin Chuan was still alive. After hearing the Hui Tong's reply, Lu Zi, who had been full of anticipation, could not help but feel disappointed. She had thought that she would be able to get more good news from the Hui Tong. She had not expected to come here for nothing. Seeing the disappointment on Lu Zi's face, the Hui Tong pursed his lips. Actually, you don't have to worry too much about Qin Chuan. Qin Chuan is the chosen one with great luck. His current predicament may be a form of training for him. When he returns, he will definitely bring us a great surprise. I hope so. Lu Zi forced a smile and said to the Hui Tong, "Sorry to disturb you, Senior. Junior will leave now." After saying goodbye to the Hui Tong, Lu Zi prepared to turn and leave. At that moment, the Hui Tong suddenly called out to Lu Zi and said to Lu Zi, "Wait, I have something to tell you." Hearing the Hui Tong's words, Lu Zi responded, "Senior, if you have something to say, Junior will listen." The Hui Tong looked deeply at Lu Zi and asked, "Are you willing to become a dragon?" LVZ couldn't help but be stunned. Dragon race? Sky City. Long before the Air Center had fallen, Shangwan Yuanhao had left the Air Center and returned to Sky City due to some personal matters. Before he had finished dealing with the matters here, he had received news that the Air Center had been invaded by Zerg. What followed was the death of the Air Center and the death of the Air Center. Shangwan Yuanhao was very glad that he had returned to Sky City before this disaster had happened. He had avoided this disaster and would not be treated as a deserter. His situation was very good. Back then, Zhou Lin and Si Tang had returned with Shangwan Yuanhao. Now, they were very glad. If they had not returned with Shangwan Yuanhao, the two of them might not have been able to survive in the world within a world. Lin, have you thought about the matter your teacher discussed with you? Zhou Meng sat on the sofa and looked at Zhou Lin, who was sitting across from him. His face was full of emotions. He had not seen Zhou Lin for a few years, and she had become even more beautiful. It was time to find a good family to marry. Hearing Zhou Meng's words, Zhou Lin glanced at Zhou Meng and said, "If father is talking about becoming Dao partners with senior brother Si Tang and reaching the nascent soul stage, then there's no need to mention it. My decision will not change." Hearing this, Zhou Meng frowned slightly and said to Zhou Lin, "Why are you not willing? I have seen Si Tang before. He could be said to be talented and handsome. He is definitely a good match for you. Now that the two of you are in the complete Golden Core realm, if you can become Dao partners, you will definitely be able to reach the nascent soul stage in a short period of time. Now that the entire Star Dragon Federation is in danger, powerful strength is the key to survival. Don't you understand? Father, since you have seen through things so clearly, why don't you become Dao partners with senior brother Si Tang?" Zhou Lin said calmly, "I don't need it." Seeing how determined Zhou Lin was, Zhou Meng's face could not help but turn gloomy. He asked, "Are you still thinking about that Qin Chuan? I have already heard that he died in the prison of the supervision department. Why do you keep thinking about a dead person?" Hearing Zhou Meng mention Qin Chuan, a complicated look flashed across Zhou Lin's eyes. She looked deeply at Zhou Meng and said softly, "Father, this has nothing to do with Qin Chuan. I don't like senior brother Si Tang, and I don't like being forced to live my life. Let's end this matter here." Chapter 753. She's still not willing? Shangwan Yuanhao looked at Zhou Meng with a calm expression. No one could tell whether he was happy, angry, sad, or happy. "Captain," Lin's mind just changed for a moment. Zhou Meng said to Shangwan Yuanhao, "I'll go back and persuade her. She'll understand that we're doing this for her own good." Hearing Zhou Meng's words, Shangwan Yuanhao shook his head and said indifferently, "You know Lin, and I also know her. We both know what kind of person she is. There's no meaning in brushing me off like this." Zhou Meng couldn't help but fall silent. For a moment, he didn't know what to say. We're letting Lin and Ying Er become Dao companions because we're thinking about them. We're thinking about the bigger picture. Right now, our Star Dragon Federation is in danger. The survival of the human race is right in front of us. We absolutely can't miss any chance to increase our strength. Shangwan Yuanhao looked deeply at Zhou Meng. No matter if Lin agrees or not, she has to become Dao companions with Ying Er. This is the wish of me, her teacher, and also the wish of you, her father. She has to comply. Captain, isn't this a bit too tough on Lin? Zhou Ming frowned slightly. Lin Lin has her own thoughts. We can't force our thoughts on Lin Lin. Zhou Ming, please wake up. Shangguan Yuanhao's face sank. This isn't an era of peace. We can let Lin Lin do whatever she wants. This is an era of war. Do you know how many days we have to prepare? Do you know how big of a crisis we're facing right now? Lin Lin's stubbornness will cause us to lose two nascent soul stage experts. Do you know that such a loss is very likely to cause us to lose everything? Facing Shangguan Yuanhao's series of questions, Zhou Ming was speechless. As a higher-up of Black City, he naturally knew about Kargard's matter. He also knew that the human race had less than 100 days to prepare. If they couldn't solve Kargard's problem in 100 days, they would be facing a tragic war of extermination. What they needed to do now was to increase their strength as much as possible before the war of extermination. This way, they would have a higher chance of survival in the future. I know what to do. Zhou Ming pursed his lips and said, I will give you a satisfactory answer within 3 days. Shangguan Yuanhao shook his head again and said earnestly to Zhou Ming, you have to understand one thing. You're not doing this for me, and you're not doing this to satisfy me. You're doing this for all of us. When the end of the world comes, whether it's you or me, we're just ants struggling to survive. There's no difference. I understand what you mean. Zhou Ming nodded solemnly. I am working hard for all of us. Shangguan Yuanhao stood at the door and watched Zhou Ming leave. When Zhou Ming's figure completely disappeared, a figure suddenly appeared behind him. Teacher. The figure that suddenly appeared stood behind Shangguan Yuanhao respectfully and said to Shangguan Yuanhao in a low voice, There's news from the Elven City. Zerg attacked the Elven City at night in an attempt to undo the seal on Kargad, but he failed. Shangguan Yuanhao slowly turned around and looked at the figure standing behind him. He asked, Inger, how much of my conversation with Zhou Ming did you hear? The person that Shangguan Yuanhao referred to as Ing was naturally Si Tang, Zhou Lin Sr. Faced with Shangguan Yuanhao's question, Si Tang did not dare to hide anything. She answered honestly, Teacher, I heard the entire conversation between you and Uncle Zhou. I know that you and Uncle Zhou have put in a lot of effort to matchmake Zhou Lin and me. To Si Tang, women were not essential on the path of cultivation. He could choose to have a partner or not. He just wanted to let nature take its course. As for the choice of a partner, he felt that as long as they were of equal social status, there were not many conditions. Zhou Lin, on the other hand, was the most suitable candidate for him in terms of status, appearance, and talent. As such, he did not object to the matchmaking between Shangguan Yuanhao and Zhou Ming. As for Zhou Lin's attitude, he did not take it to heart either. In his opinion, Zhou Lin's opinion was not more important than Zhou Ming and Shangguan Yuanhao's opinions combined. It was up to the parents and the matchmaker. In the end, he and Zhou Lin would probably be forced to be together. Although it was said that nothing forcibly done would be sweet, it would be enough for them to successfully advance to the nascent soul stage. Out of all my disciples, only you and Lin Lin are still alive. I hope that the two of you can become partners and support each other so that you can have a better life in this apocalyptic world. Shangguan Yuanhao sighed and said to Si Tang, This is my only wish as a teacher. You should interact with Lin Lin more often so that she can discover your strengths. That way, the two of you can have a better life in the future. I understand, teacher. Si Tang agreed and handed the information that she had just received to Shangguan Yuanhao. Shangguan Yuanhao took the information and took a look. He then frowned and said softly, 4-star celestial formation? Hearing Shangguan Yuanhao's muttering, Si Tang explained to him, Teacher, this 4-star celestial formation was discovered by Lu Zi and the others when they were exploring some ruins in the universe. They had never used it before. However, they used this formation when they were fighting against Zerg's consul yesterday. It was surprisingly effective. They were able to kill Zerg's consul while they were only in the Golden Core stage. After hearing Si Tang's explanation, Shangguan Yuanhao squinted his eyes and said, If I remember correctly, these people should be Qinchuan's friends. When Si Tying heard Shangwan Yuanhao mention Qinchuan's name, her heart skipped a beat. She said to Shangwan Yuanhao, "They're not just Qinchuan's friends. I think they're best friends." Lu Zi, in particular, is deeply in love with Qinchuan. When they were in the world within a world, she rejected countless suitors. Even the elites among the quasi-heirs could not move her. How can a quasi-heirs be compared to Qinchuan? Shangwan Yuanhao laughed coldly. However, no matter how talented Qinchuan is, it is useless. After all, he is already a dead man. After the center of Kunlun Field's heir fell, Shangwan Yuanhao had specifically asked around about the monitoring department. From what he knew, no prisoners were able to escape from the monitoring department's prison when the monitoring department fell. Even if Qinchuan did not die in the prison, he should have died at the hands of Zerg. Chapter 754. This was Qinchuan's 15th day of wandering in the universe since he left the Sword God ruins. During these 15 days, Bai Wei had been moving towards the center of the Kunlun field as fast as she could. During this period, she didn't stop at all except for resting. The original plan was to reach the center of the Kunlun field within 2 months, but with their current speed, they would need at most 40 days to reach the center of the Kunlun field. Just as they were getting closer and closer to the center of the Kunlun field, something unexpected happened. They met a group of old acquaintances of Qinchuan's, the barbarian wolves. Looking at the pack of barbarian wolves that suddenly appeared in the distance, Bai Wei's expression couldn't help but change slightly. She said to Qinchuan, "We met a pack of barbarian wolves." Qinchuan, who had seen the strength of the barbarian wolves before, couldn't help but have a subtle expression when he heard Bai Wei's words. He looked at the pack of barbarian wolves in front of them and said to Bai Wei, "These barbarian wolves might be the ones I met before. If it was before, I would probably turn around and run, but now I want to test the strength of this barbarian wolf king." The last time he faced the barbarian wolf king, Qinchuan didn't even have the qualifications to get close to the barbarian wolf king. He could only tremble under the barbarian wolf king's pressure from afar. Now that he was in the nascent soul stage, his strength had increased tremendously compared to before. This barbarian wolf king was a good training stone for him to test how strong his combat strength was now. Bai Wei, who was about to go around the pack of barbarian wolves, couldn't help but change her expression when she heard Qinchuan's words. She asked, "You want to fight the barbarian wolf king?" Qinchuan nodded and asked with a smile, "Why? You don't believe in my strength?" Bai Wei shook her head and said to Qinchuan, "If you fight the barbarian wolf king on land, I believe you can definitely win. But now that we are in the universe, the barbarian wolf king's strength can be increased by at least 30%. Hearing Bai Wei's words, Qinchuan asked curiously, "Why is that?" "We star beasts are the darlings of the universe. We live in a universe, and the universe is definitely our favorite and most suitable environment for us. The strength of the star beasts you encounter in the ruins of the universe or other places has been weakened in disguise." After hearing Bai Wei's explanation, the smile on Qinchuan's face became even wider. That makes it more challenging. Seeing that Qinchuan had made up his mind, Bai Wei didn't try to persuade him anymore. Moreover, it was already too late to take a detour because the pack of wolves had already discovered them and were rapidly charging towards them. Qinchuan, although you can move freely in the universe, there are restrictions. If you don't fight, you can move freely in the universe for about 3 days. If a battle breaks out, especially a high-intensity battle, you can move freely in the universe for a maximum of 2 hours. If the battle doesn't end within 2 hours, we'll be in trouble, Qinchuan said. Qinchuan smiled. Hearing Bai Wei's words, Qinchuan's expression changed slightly. He asked, "Why didn't you tell me such important news earlier?" "It's not too late to tell you now." Bai Wei left Qinchuan and flew into the distance. "I'm going to find the ordinary wolves." After leaving Bai Wei's protection, Qinchuan stood alone in the universe. The wonderful feeling of floating made Qinchuan feel a little uncomfortable. However, he didn't have time to adapt to the environment because the pack of wolves had already arrived. "Thunder come!" Qinchuan shouted in a low voice. He raised his hand and waved out a 1,000-foot-long bolt of thunder. It directly rushed into the pack of wolves. Lightning flashed and thunder rumbled, and dozens of wolves died on the spot. Sizzle. The power of thunder wreaked havoc in the pack of wolves. In just a short moment, it killed hundreds of wolves, causing great losses to the pack of wolves. At this time, the barbaric wolf king, who was in the middle of the pack of wolves, finally revealed itself. It looked at Qin Chuan with a pair of eyes filled with killing intent. Qin Chuan recognized the barbaric wolf king the moment he saw it. This was the barbaric wolf king he had seen in the monitoring department. However, the barbaric wolf king didn't seem to remember him. In that case, he would kindly remind the barbaric wolf king. Dragons roar to the 9 heavens. Roar! The phantom of an azure thunder dragon suddenly appeared above Qin Chuan's head. It roared and rushed into the pack of wolves. Wherever the thunder dragon passed, the wolves wailed. In an instant, nearly 100 wolves were killed by Qin Chuan on the spot. Looking at the azure thunder dragon wreaking havoc in the pack of wolves, Qin Chuan couldn't help but sigh. It's a pity that sound can't be transmitted directly in the universe. Otherwise, I would be able to see these wolves being scared out of their wits after hearing the dragon's roar. Just as Qin Chuan was lamenting about this, the barbaric wolf king finally recognized Qin Chuan's identity. It remembered the ant that dared to provoke it. It didn't expect that the ant from back then to grow to such an astonishing extent after more than a year. Roar! The barbarian wolf king let out a long howl towards the sky. All the barbarian wolves sensed the will of the barbarian wolf king and moved aside to open up a path for the barbarian wolf king. The barbarian wolf king dashed forward and appeared in front of Qin Chuan with incomparable speed. The barbaric wolf king was almost right next to Qin Chuan's face. It opened its bloody mouth and let out a silent roar at Qin Chuan. Vortexes appeared around Qin Chuan, emitting a frightening aura. Lightning escape. Just as the vortexes were about to reach Qin Chuan's figure suddenly turned into a bolt of lightning and instantly left the center of the vortexes, appearing 1,000 meters away. Sword come. Qin Chuan circulated his sword chi, and the sword chi that was mixed with the energy of the golden tribulation, lightning, slashed towards the barbaric wolf king. Facing this extremely lethal sword chi, the barbaric wolf king didn't dare take it head-on, and it could only retreat and dodge. However, Qin Chuan didn't spare it. The enormous sword chi in his hand suddenly split apart, and it transformed into tens of thousands of sword chi that shot towards the barbaric wolf king. Under this rain of sword chi, the barbaric wolf king couldn't dodge and could only forcefully counterattack. Its counterattack was extremely strange. It actually opened its mouth and swallowed the sword chi into its stomach. Is this a fucking barbaric wolf? Why does it look like a dog? Qin Chuan couldn't help but be dumbstruck when he saw the barbaric wolf king's unique skill of swallowing sword chi. This fellow's appetite is really good. It's almost catching up to the little armored dragon. Just as Qin Chuan was exclaiming in surprise, the barbaric wolf king had already swallowed all the sword chi that filled the sky into its stomach. After that, the barbaric wolf king opened its mouth and spat out a silver-white ball of energy at Qin Chuan. This ball of energy hadn't even gotten close to Qin Chuan when it exploded with a bang, dyeing the entire universe in a silver-white color. Under the cover of this silver-white color that filled the sky, the barbaric wolf king's figure flashed and once again appeared by Qin Chuan's side. After that, it used its huge claw to slap down at Qin Chuan's head. Chapter 755. Qin Chuan had already expected the barbaric wolf king's attack, but he didn't dodge. He wanted to use his body to withstand the barbaric wolf king's attack. He wanted to see how strong his body was now. Bang! The barbaric wolf king's huge claw fiercely slapped Qin Chuan's body. Although it successfully sent Qin Chuan flying, it didn't cause any damage to Qin Chuan. Qin Chuan rubbed his shoulder that was hit by the barbaric wolf king and grinned. Although it hurts a little, it's still lighter than I thought. It seems that my body is now ridiculously strong. After the baptism of the nascent soul stage lightning tribulation, Qinchuan's body could be said to be impregnable. Ordinary attacks wouldn't be able to break through his defense. Although the barbaric Wolf King's attack was heavy and fierce, it was nothing to Qinchuan. It wasn't even 1/10 of the power of the last golden lightning tribulation. When the barbaric Wolf King saw that Qinchuan was unscathed after taking his attack, he couldn't help but feel angry. However, at the same time, he also wanted to retreat because he felt that Qinchuan's strength wasn't something he could fight against. If he continued to fight, he might die. The moment the barbaric Wolf King wanted to retreat, Qinchuan sensed it. He smiled and transmitted his voice to the barbaric Wolf King. "Brother, don't think about running away. I haven't used my true strength yet." When the barbaric Wolf King heard Qinchuan's words, he turned around and ran without saying anything. When Qinchuan saw this, how could he let the barbaric Wolf King do as he wished? His figure flashed and arrived beside the barbaric Wolf King. He raised his hand and pierced the barbaric Wolf King's body with sword chi. The barbaric Wolf King couldn't dodge in time and was pierced by the sword chi, causing some silvery white blood to flow out. "Io, the color of your blood is quite unique." Seeing this, Qinchuan chuckled. The normal barbaric wolves he had killed all had normal red blood, but the barbaric Wolf King was different. It actually had silver white blood. The barbarian Wolf King was infuriated by Qinchuan's teasing. He immediately turned back to fight with Qinchuan. However, it was a pity that he was no match for Qinchuan. Qinchuan relied on the strength of his physical body to fight with the barbarian Wolf King in close combat. After a few exchanges, the barbarian Wolf King was beaten black and blue. "How did you escape from that woman?" "Hua Wuying. She's a late nascent soul stage cultivator." "Could it be that I'm already stronger than a late nascent soul stage cultivator?" Qinchuan was very puzzled. The barbaric Wolf King was still the barbaric Wolf King he knew, but the difference in strength was too great. When the barbaric Wolf King heard Qinchuan's words, he couldn't help but reveal a human-like expression of hidden bitterness. He couldn't help but send a voice transmission to Qinchuan. "Don't you know if you're stronger than an ordinary late nascent soul stage cultivator?" Hearing the barbaric Wolf King's voice transmission, Qinchuan couldn't help but pause his attack. He looked at the barbaric Wolf King with some surprise and asked, "You can actually speak human language? Star beasts are the spirits of a universe. What's so strange about them being able to speak?" The barbaric Wolf King looked at Qinchuan with fear. "If you want to kill me, then do it. Don't torture me." The barbaric Wolf King could see that it was basically impossible for him to escape from Qinchuan. Now, he could only pray that he could die quickly and not be tortured like this. As a barbaric wolf, he also had self-respect. When Qinchuan heard the barbaric Wolf King's words, he chuckled and asked, "Do you really want to die?" The barbaric Wolf King seemed to understand the meaning of Qinchuan's words and said in a deep voice, "A barbaric wolf will never surrender. I don't want you to submit to me forever. I want to sign a contract with you. You work for me for 10 years. After 10 years, I'll let you go. How about it?" Qinchuan smiled. 10 years in exchange for a lifetime of freedom. You know what to choose. Hearing Qinchuan's words, the barbaric Wolf King couldn't help but fall into deep thought. Star Beast had a long lifespan. He could live for at least another 1,000 years. If it was just 10 years of freedom in exchange for 1,000 years of life, it wasn't unacceptable. When Qinchuan saw that the barbaric Wolf King was moved, he directly said to the barbaric Wolf King, "Come, let's sign the contract." Bai Wei was stunned. She didn't expect that Qinchuan would actually subdue the barbaric Wolf King in such a short time. "Bai Wei, let me introduce you. This guy is called Man-Man. He'll be one of us from now on." Qinchuan sat on the barbaric Wolf King and smiled as he introduced the barbaric Wolf King to Bai Wei. When she heard the name Man-Man, Bai Wei's expression suddenly became a bit strange. "Hello, I'm Bai Wei from the Star Fox race." Bai Wei glanced at the expressionless Man-Man with a subtle expression. "Your name is very nice." The barbaric Wolf King's mouth twitched when he heard that, and he replied, Thank you. He didn't have a name. This name was just forced on him by Qin Chuan. Okay, let's not talk nonsense. Let's continue to the air center. Qin Chuan smiled at Man Man. I'll have to trouble you to be my mount for a while. Hearing Qin Chuan's words, Man Man couldn't help but frown slightly and ask, You're going to the air center? Qin Chuan nodded and said, Of course. You know that I'm from the air center. Now that I'm wandering outside, of course I have to go back as soon as possible. Man Man said to Qin Chuan very seriously, I advise you not to go back. If you go back to the air center now, you'll be walking into a trap unless you want to die. Hearing that, Qin Chuan's expression changed slightly, and he asked, What happened to the air center? Man Man looked at Qin Chuan strangely. You still don't know? The sacred race invaded the air center and completely occupied it. Now, there are basically no humans or demons left in the air center. It's the sacred race's world now. Zerg, Qin Chuan exclaimed. Zerg has already occupied the air center. Yes, the sacred race is the Zerg that you humans always talk about. Now, humans and demons have all returned to the banished land, and Zerg is organizing an attack on the banished land. When you get back, the banished land may have already become Zerg's territory. Hearing that, Qin Chuan's expression immediately darkened. He said to Man Man, Let's go immediately and go directly to Star Dragon, the banished land. Are you sure? Man Man hesitated. With your own power, you can't do anything even if you go back. Zerg is too strong. No, my friends and family are still in the banished land. I have to go back. Qin Chuan was very determined. They must need me now. I have to go back to them. Seeing that Qin Chuan was so determined, Man Man didn't say anything more. She carried Qin Chuan back to the banished land. Qin Chuan, who was sitting on Man Man's body, had a gloomy expression on his face. He never thought that so many things would happen while he was away. Chapter 756. The Air Center, the former Senate, now Zerg's frontline command center. Ka Feng sat in the brightly lit hall, looking at the air center outside the window. He said to the people behind him, I can see the entire air center from here. I can see every detail of the air center. Do you know how I feel? When everyone heard Ka Feng's question, no one stood up to answer. This was because yesterday their third probing attack on the banished land had failed. To them, losing 3 times in a row was a great humiliation. At this time, it would be good if they were right, but if they were wrong, then they wouldn't have a good ending. Receiving no response from the crowd, Ka Feng slowly turned around and looked coldly at the crowd. He said in a low voice, Perhaps one day, I will be able to sit here and watch the humans and demons of the land of exile attack us and take back the air's center. At the same time, I can also see how you trash run away. Let me, the commander, personally go into battle. Everyone was silent when they heard Ka Feng's words. No one dared to make sound. They were as quiet as corpses. Even so, they still incurred Ka Feng's great dissatisfaction. Look at you. You're all like dead people. There's no vigor or vitality in you. If you're tired of living and don't want to contribute on the battlefield, I'll send all of you to planet Cuba. Everyone's expressions changed when they heard Ka Feng mention planet Cuba. If they were really sent to planet Cuba to be punished because they didn't do well in the war, they might as well die on the battlefield. At least they could ask for a quick death. It's been a month. It's been a whole month. Don't talk about rescuing General Kargad. You haven't even seen General Kargad's face. Don't you think it's embarrassing? Why do you want to come back alive? Isn't it better to die on the battlefield? Facing Ka Feng's anger, everyone felt helpless. Of course, they wanted to rescue General Kargad, but after the failure of the first ambush, the humans had already noticed their intentions and had set up a tight encirclement around General Kargad. With just the few people they had, it was too difficult for them to launch a surprise attack on a defensive position set up by the humans. Facing the silent crowd, Ka Feng took a deep breath and said, Since you can't win in a covert attack, then we'll win in an open and above-board way. We'll bring General Kargad back. Everyone was shocked by Ka Feng's words. Were they going to launch an attack on the exiled land? Everyone, listen to my orders. Gather everyone. We'll set off at 8 a.m. tomorrow and launch an attack on the Star Dragon Federation. Kafeng said in a powerful voice. If we don't win, we'll die. As a professional scout, Jiang Ming had to drive a shuttle to patrol around Star Dragon City every day. This was his job, but it was also his daily pleasure. He liked the feeling of overlooking the entire Star Dragon City from a high altitude. Although it wasn't the first time, he still felt a great shock every time he saw it. This is the endless charm of Star Dragon City. Jiang Ming looked down at Star Dragon City and said with some emotion, if a war really breaks out, I hope that Star Dragon City will be the last place to be affected by the flames of war. In Jiang Ming's mind, Star Dragon City wasn't just the capital of the Star Dragon Federation. It was his home. It was a place that he would sacrifice his life to protect. Just as Jiang Ming was thinking about this, the space detector on the control panel suddenly lit up with a red light and started to beep. Jiang Ming came back to his senses and looked at the space detector. Just as he was about to report the situation to his superiors, the shuttle suddenly shook violently, as if it had collided with something. Asterisk bang. Asterisk a thick and solid arm suddenly pierced through the shuttle and pinched Jiang Ming's throat with precision. Jiang Ming's eyes widened. He didn't have time to react before his throat was crushed, and he lost his life. Sir, the hidden danger has been dealt with. The army can enter the city now. The person who killed Jiang Ming stood on top of the shuttle and let the shuttle fall to the ground. He looked at the prosperous Star Dragon City in front of him, and a cold light flashed in his eyes. Star Dragon City? It will belong to the Saint clan from now on. Buzz! A huge dark green vortex suddenly appeared in the sky. A beetle as large as a mountain slowly flew out of it. On the beetle's body were countless Zerg soldiers who were ready to go. They showed a ferocious smile at Star Dragon City. At the same time, dozens of vortexes of the same size appeared around the dark green vortex. Dozens of beetle warships slowly flew out of them. The scene was extremely shocking. At this moment, the residents of Star Dragon City had noticed the sudden appearance of the vortex in the sky and Zerg's army. They all screamed in horror. The entire Star Dragon City was in chaos. Enemy attack. Enemy attack. The sound of the air defense alarm rang throughout Star Dragon City. All the panicked residents fled into the underground fortress under the command of the city guards. At the same time, a pale white defensive rune formation lit up around Star Dragon City, protecting the city. In the government building, Go-In stood in front of the window. He looked at the Zerg army in the sky with a serious expression and said in a deep voice, "Why didn't our scouts notice the invasion of Zerg? President, we have lost contact with the hundreds of scouts on duty today. They should have died." The secretary stood behind Go-In and whispered, "Marshal Mo hopes that you can take refuge in the underground fortress." Go-In frowned and asked the secretary, "Where is he?" "Marshal Mo has gone to fight." Whoosh! Bang! When Zerg's army was preparing to attack, one of the beetle warships at the front line was suddenly attacked. Dozens of Zerg soldiers were instantly killed by a domineering sword energy. However, the Zerg soldiers around it didn't even see who attacked. Boom! The deck of the beetle warship was suddenly bombarded by laser cannons. The intense light energy exploded in the crowd and instantly took the lives of dozens of Zerg soldiers. "It's a human master. Everyone be alert." Before the Zerg soldier could finish his sentence, his neck was cut open by a sword energy and his head rolled to the ground. When the Zerg soldiers on the beetle warship were in a panic, a strong figure suddenly flew out from the command room of the warship and punched the empty space above the deck. When his fist landed, a figure in blue and white armor appeared in the empty space above the deck. Chapter 757. I'm the Crimson Army's consul, Kanyu. May I know your name? Kanyu looked at the blue-white battlesuit in front of him and sneered. You're so strong. You're definitely not a nobody. The blue-white battlesuit did not answer Kanyu's question. He swept the long sword in his hand and forced Kanyu to retreat. Then, A shocking sword intent burst out from his body. It was powerful and domineering, as if it was going to split the sky and earth. It was unstoppable. Kanyu's face became a little frightened in the face of this terrifying sword intent. He subconsciously dodged and retreated. Under the enhancement of the sword intent, the sword aura became even more terrifying. It slashed fiercely on the deck of the beetle battlesuit. With a violent roar, the beetle battlesuit was cut in half. Kanyu's face became extremely gloomy when he saw the beetle battlesuit falling to the ground. He lost his battlesuit before the general attack began and damaged the morale of the army. He did not know what kind of punishment he would receive when he returned to Kafone. The only way he could make up for his mistake was to capture the blue-white battlesuit in front of him. Just as Kanyu thought of this, he subconsciously looked at the blue-white battlesuit not far away. However, to his surprise, the blue-white battlesuit had disappeared. At the same time, a strong sense of danger suddenly appeared in Kanyu's heart. Behind you, Kanyu did not look back and quickly rushed forward, trying to pull away. However, the blue-white battlesuit did not give Kanyu a chance at all. The long sword in his hand had already cut through the sky and slammed into Kanyu's chest like a fierce dragon. It shattered Kanyu's battlesuit and at the same time shattered his internal organs. Pucci. Kanyu did not even have time to scream before he died, tragically under the blue-white battlesuit's long sword. He became the first consul to die outside Star Dragon City. And Kanyu's death also caused the surrounding Zerg soldiers to turn pale and their morale to plummet. Just as the blue-white battlesuit killed Kanyu, a burst of extremely enthusiastic cheers erupted from the underground Star Dragon City. At the same time, Zerg's reinforcements also arrived, trying to surround the blue-white battlesuit. However, the blue-white battlesuit did not give Zerg the chance to do so. Relying on its speed advantage, the blue-white battlesuit instantly pulled away and fled. I'm the Star Dragon Federation's Marshal Mo June Zergants. This is just a small lesson. If you don't want to die, then retreat. An extremely calm and heavy voice came out of the blue and white armor, resounding between heaven and earth. The faces of Zerg and the others turned ashen, and their expressions were extremely gloomy. What a great marshal! Good job, Mo June. On the main ship, Kafone was furious. He really didn't expect that not only did the humans not run away when Zerg's army approached, this Marshal Mo June even had the guts to attack Zerg's battleships alone. What's more, he actually succeeded. This was completely beyond Feng's expectations. Marshal, this Mo June is extremely strong. His sudden attack caught us off guard, so our reinforcements weren't able to arrive in time. Please punish us, Marshal. A group of Zerg senators who had failed to surround Mo June earlier all knelt in front of Kafone, begging for punishment. They had the advantage in numbers, but Mo June had successfully escaped alone. They really didn't have the face to defend themselves, so they could only accept their punishment. Kafeng's face was gloomy. His sharp eyes looked at the people kneeling below the stage and said coldly, "Tonight, each of you will lead 10,000 elites to attack Star Dragon City from different directions. Whoever enters the city first will be exempted from punishment. The last person to enter the city will be the vanguard. You must be the first to enter the city." Hearing this, everyone immediately responded, "We will break Star Dragon City tonight." Whoosh! Mo June, who was piloting the blue-white battlesuit, was able to enter Star Dragon City after being identified by the defense array. What greeted him was warm applause and cheers from the military headquarters. "Welcome back, Marshal." Amidst the cheers of the crowd, Mo June walked out of the battlesuit. However, there was no joy on his face. There was only seriousness and solemnity. Seeing the expression on Mo June's face, everyone stopped clapping and the smiles on their faces gradually disappeared. The noisy scene instantly became quiet. Even the sound of a pin dropping could be heard. Seeing that everyone had quieted down, Mo June said indifferently, "I don't think this is something to be happy about. Instead, it's something that we should be vigilant about. Zerg's troops are at the city gates, and even with my strength, I can only attack by surprise. I don't dare to face them head-on. Zerg's strength is definitely not as simple as what you see. Marshall, you're right. Everyone responded to Mo June in unison. Their faces all became serious. Everyone prepare yourselves. Today, I attack Zerg's battlesuit and damage Zerg's morale. In order to restore their morale, they will definitely launch a strong attack today. Whether or not Star Dragon City can be defended will depend on today. Mo June looked at everyone and was about to say a few more words when Gowan walked over from not far away. When everyone saw Gao in, they consciously dispersed, leaving Gowan and Mo June some space. You were too dangerous just now. Gowan frowned and looked at Mo June. You're already so old. Why can't you be more mature? How do you want me to be mature? Mo June smiled bitterly. Zerg's army suddenly pressed on our borders, and they're right above Star Dragon City. If I didn't give Zerg a head-on blow and use this opportunity to restore the morale of the human race, how confident do you think we would be in defending Star Dragon City? Gowan was speechless because Mo June was right. In the face of such an unexpected situation, it was very important to stabilize the morale of the human race. Once the morale of the human race fluctuated, the entire Star Dragon City would be in chaos. By the way, have you sent out the news of the rescue? Mo June looked at Gowan and asked, how many troops can come to support us? Our communication with the outside world has been cut off. Gowan revealed a helpless expression. I don't know what method the insectoids used, but they've cut off all contact with the outside world. Now, Star Dragon City is an isolated city. Hearing Gowan's words, Mo June's expression changed slightly. He said in a low voice, if that's the case, we can only hope that the various forces can respond as soon as possible and take the initiative to provide support. It's difficult. Gowan looked deeply at Mo June. Now that our orders can't go out of Star Dragon City, some things may not go as smoothly as you and I think. Mo June's expression changed again. Gowan's words were reasonable, but if Star Dragon City couldn't receive any reinforcements, they wouldn't be able to hold on for long with the current strength of Star Dragon City. The only thing he could do was to try his best. Chapter 758. When the insectoid army appeared in the sky above Star Dragon City, many people around Star Dragon City noticed this scene. Their faces were filled with shock, followed by endless panic. In just a few minutes, the news of Star Dragon City being besieged by an unknown force spread across the entire Star Dragon Federation. The unknown force was soon confirmed to be Zerg's army. Zerg's army had arrived at Star Dragon City. Lu Zi and the others in Elf City were shocked when they heard the news. Not only was it because of Zerg's invasion, but it was also because Zerg had quietly surrounded Star Dragon City, turning it into an empty city. I can't contact the Black Heaven sect. Qin Changxing's face was solemn. He had contacted the Black Heaven sect as soon as he heard the news, but no matter how hard he tried, he still couldn't get in touch with the Black Heaven sect. Me too. I've been cut off from my family. Long Zhao's face was also very ugly. She had only encountered this kind of situation in the world within a world. This was the first time she had encountered something like this in the Star Dragon Federation. It's not that you've been cut off from your family. It's that the entire Star Dragon City has been cut off from the outside world. Lu Zi's face was gloomy. She said to everyone, it must be Zerg. What should we do now? Qin Changxing looked at Lu Zi. We can't just do nothing. Seeing the anxious look on Qin Changxing's face, Lu Zi comforted him. Don't worry. Star Dragon City is heavily guarded, and the Star Dragon Federation has countless legions everywhere. Star Dragon City will be fine in a short period of time. I know what you're saying, but I don't know anything about the situation right now. I can't feel at ease. Qin Changxing, of course, knew that Star Dragon City wouldn't fall so easily, but the lesson of the Air Center was right there. How could he feel at ease? Long Xiao was also very anxious, but she was calmer than Qin Changxing because she had confidence in Star Dragon City's defense rune formation. It was a super powerful level 4 defense rune formation that the Long family spent thousands of years perfecting bit by bit. Chongqing, don't worry. Star Dragon City's Star Dragon formation is a level 4 defense rune formation passed down from the Long family generation. It's impossible for Zerg to break through it so easily. Long Xiao said to Chun Chongqing, Star Dragon City is much safer than we thought. Hearing Long Xiao's words, Chun Chongqing said, rather surprisedly, Star Dragon Grand Array? How come I didn't know that Star Dragon City had such a rune formation? I'm not lying, Long Xiao's Long. I'm Long Xiao said. By Long's Dragon City. He Chongqing Zest Dragon City's Star Dragon formation. He's must be very with it. It's him with us with the dragon with it as city. Even so, I think we should do something. Chun Chongqing said to Lu Zi, what do you think? Lu Zi looked at Baiyu, who was sitting quietly on the side, and asked, Baiyu, what do you think? Ever since Xinchuan separated from them, Lu Zi found that Baiyu became more and more isolated. She talked less and less, and sometimes people would even inadvertently ignore her existence. Hearing Lu Zi's words, Baiyu looked up at her and answered, use the name of the City of Elves army to contact all the monks and armies and set a time to go to Star Dragon City together. Going to Star Dragon City alone is just giving Zerg food. It's meaningless. Hearing Baiyu say so much in one breath, Chun Chongqing was stunned for a moment, then gave Baiyu a thumbs up and said, as expected of Yuzi, who always maintains absolute rationality at all times. This is very reasonable. Baiyu is right. If we go to Star Dragon City, we'll be discovered by Zerg before we even see the city walls. At that time, don't talk about supporting Star Dragon City. We'll be lucky if we don't die. Long Xiao said to Lu Zi, I agree with Baiyu's suggestion. We'll use the name of the Black Moon Combat Academy to call all the people in the world. I remember that we're in alliance with Jieshan. Now that Star Dragon City is being surrounded by Zerg, Jieshan will definitely support us. Lu Zi said to everyone, let's talk to Teacher Su about this. Then we'll discuss it and come up with a plan as soon as possible. Jieshan. Zhongqiu sat in front of the conference table and looked at everyone's calm faces. She frowned and said, everyone, Star Dragon City is being surrounded by Zerg. Are you going to waste your time like this? Fellow Zhong, don't worry. Not everyone is here yet, right? Silver Fir City's mayor chuckled and said to Zhongqiu, when everyone is here, we can naturally start discussing how to support Star Dragon City. Everyone here knows that if Star Dragon City is destroyed, the Star Dragon Federation will suffer heavy losses. At that time, Jieshan won't have a good time either. Anyone who wants to delay the rescue at this time is a fool. Hearing Silver Fir City's mayor's words, everyone present nodded in agreement. If the Star Dragon Federation was destroyed, Zerg would definitely not let them go. That was why they came here early to wait for the conference to start. They wanted to discuss how to support Star Dragon City. Buzz. The conference room's door slowly opened. A pale figure slowly walked in. Seeing this person's arrival, someone immediately greeted him. Lord Yinshan, we've been waiting for you. Since Lord Yinshan is here, we can start discussing how to support Star Dragon City. Hearing everyone's words, Lord Yinshan's face was expressionless. He looked at everyone indifferently and suddenly said coldly, a bunch of idiots. Lord Yinshan's words made the conference room suddenly quiet down. Everyone turned their heads and looked at Lord Yinshan. They seemed to be surprised that Lord Yinshan would say something like that at this time. Lord Yinshan, what are you trying to do? Zhongqiu frowned and looked at Lord Yinshan. She had a feeling that Lord Yinshan didn't come here with good intentions. Just as these thoughts appeared in her mind, a figure suddenly appeared behind her. It was Zhong Cheng, who had been waiting outside the conference room. Madam, Lord Yinshan has betrayed us. Hearing Zhong Cheng's words, everyone's expression changed slightly. What did that mean? Facing everyone's surprised and shocked gazes, Zhong Cheng said in a deep voice, Zerg's battleship is currently 1,000 miles away from Mountain City. It must have passed through Lord Yinshan's territory. Hearing Zhong Cheng's words, Everyone's expression changed drastically. Lord Inshan betrayed Jieshan, betrayed the human race. Lord Inshan, you dare betray the human race? Facing everyone's questioning, Lord Inshan sneered. Human race? Since when did you treat us ghost cultivators as humans? This isn't called betrayal. This is called a wise man submits to circumstances. Chapter 759. Demon Realm, Heavenly Beast Temple. Yao Rao stood in front of Yao Feng and said, Emperor Father, do you know about Star Dragon City being besieged? Yao Feng looked at Yao Rao and replied, We naturally know about this matter, but what do you want to say? Emperor Father, now that Zerg's invasion has arrived, we can't sit idly by and watch Star Dragon City fall. Yao Rao proposed to Yao Feng, I suggest we immediately dispatch troops to rescue Star Dragon City. Hearing Yao Rao's words, Yao Feng deeply looked at Yao Rao and asked, Do you think I, as a father, will be so short-sighted as to sit idly by and watch Star Dragon City being destroyed? Then why haven't you taken action yet? Yao Rao was puzzled. Star Dragon City has been besieged for almost a day. We can't delay any longer. Seeing the puzzled expression on Yao Rao's face, Yao Feng somewhat helplessly sighed, then said to Yao Rao, You only care about Star Dragon City. Don't tell me you don't care about Border Mountain? Border Mountain? Yao Rao was very puzzled. What happened to Border Mountain? Yao Feng replied to Yao Rao, Border Mountain has fallen. Hearing this, Yao Rao opened her eyes wide in shock, then said in disbelief, Border Mountain has fallen? What's going on here? After Zerg besieged Star Dragon City, he immediately dispatched troops to Border Mountain and colluded with Lord Inshan of Border Mountain to capture all the nascent soul cultivators of Border Mountain in one fell swoop. Now Zerg's battleship is parked on the only way for our demon realm to enter Border Mountain. If we can't solve this problem first, we won't be able to reinforce Star Dragon City. Hearing Yao Feng's words, Yao Rao's face couldn't help but reveal a shocked expression. She had never thought that Border Mountain would actually fall so easily. Originally, Border Mountain had already communicated with our demon realm. If Zerg's invasion came, our demon realm, Border Mountain, and Star Dragon Federation would form a triangular alliance to jointly resist Zerg's invasion. This alliance used Border Mountain as the link between our demon realm and Star Dragon Federation. But now that this link is broken, our connection with Star Dragon Federation is also broken. Yao Feng explained to Yao Rao, if it wasn't because of the problem in Border Mountain, our demon realm's reinforcement troops should have already entered Border Mountain. Having heard what was said, Yao Rao anxiously said, In that case, we should open the passage to World Mountain as soon as possible. You're oversimplifying things. Right now, we know nothing about the situation at Jia Mountain. How can we fight? Yao Feng shook his head and said, If we attack now, we might fall right into Zerg's trap. Star Dragon City won't be the only city that will be surrounded. The Heavenly Beast Temple will be surrounded as well. When that happens, the shifter race and the human race will be wiped out. Yao Rao was looking at Yao Feng in shock. She was speechless. This kind of extermination of her clan was too heavy for her, and also too crazy. Raoer, don't think too much. Yao Feng looked at Yao Rao and said, Even if the sky falls down, Father will definitely help you hold it up. Yao Feng watched as Yao Rao left in a daze. Although he felt sad in his heart, but he didn't know what to say. Just when he was sighing, Snow Chio slowly walked over and said to Yao Feng, Your Majesty, take care of your body. Chio, Yao Feng looked at Xue Chio and said, No matter what happens, I will protect both of you. I believe that your Majesty can do it. Snow Chio sat down beside Yao Feng and said softly, You are the strongest person in the world. No matter if it's Zerg or anyone else, they won't be able to defeat you. What did you say? Gem Mountain has fallen. Luzi looked at Long Xiao in shock. She couldn't accept this sudden bad news. Long Xiao's expression was very serious. She said in a deep voice, Gem Mountain has indeed fallen. It happened less than 2 hours after Star Dragon City was surrounded. Gem Mountain has fallen. The path between the Shifter Realm and the Star Dragon Federation has been cut off. The Star Dragon Federation has no reinforcements. Star Dragon City is in danger. Lu Zi said anxiously, "We must save Star Dragon City as soon as possible. Otherwise, it's starting. It's starting." Before Lu Zi could finish, she was interrupted by Chun Chongqing's sudden roar. Lu Zi and Long Xiao immediately walked to Chun Chongqing's side and looked at the photon computer in front of Chun Chongqing. Chun Chongqing's expression was extremely solemn as he said to the two, "This is the TV station's real-time report of Star Dragon City's movements. Just 2 minutes ago, cannons were fired all around Star Dragon City, and battle cries shook the sky. The insectoids have launched their first attack on Star Dragon City." After hearing Chun Chongqing's explanation, Lu Zi and Long Zhao's expressions became very nervous. This was the first battle for both Star Dragon City and Zerg. Both sides would definitely give it their all. Looking at the explosions in Star Dragon City, Lu Zi couldn't help but pray for Star Dragon City in her heart. Star Dragon City would definitely win. Boom! The beetle's huge cannon blasted out a cloud of dark green mucus that stained Star Dragon City's Star Dragon formation and corroded it. However, before the corrosive effect could reach the Star Dragon formation, the Long family's people who were controlling the formation used their spiritual energy to remove it. Therefore, the Star Dragon formation was almost undamaged. The same thing was happening all around Star Dragon City. Almost a third of the Star Dragon Great Array was covered in corrosive mucus. Gowan stood in front of the Star Dragon formation's core diagram and looked at Long Fei, who was concentrating on controlling the diagram. His expression was very serious. If it weren't for the Long family's research on this Star Dragon formation, Star Dragon City would have been destroyed by Zerg. Gao pursed his lips and ordered the secretary beside him, "We can't let Zerg continue attacking like this. Tell Qin Chongxiao to lead the people out and fight with Zerg to reduce the pressure on this side." Yes. The secretary agreed and immediately used the photon computer to inform the vanguard troops, led by Qin Chongxiao, to attack immediately. Qin Chongxiao, who was far away on the city wall, looked at the optical computer that lit up. His solemn face could not help but reveal a hint of seriousness. He said to Qin Yiming, who was standing beside him, "I'm going out to battle. You guard this place by yourself." Although Qin Yiming had expected this day to come, when it really came, his heart couldn't help but tremble a little. "Father, you have to protect yourself." Whoosh! Qin Yiming's reply was the roar of the battlesuit's engines. Nearly 1,000 vanguard troops, led by Qin Chongxiao, rushed out of the Star Dragon formation's area of effect and went straight for Zerg's troops. They fought with Zerg's troops who were already on guard. Every time they attacked, they would kill without holding back. In just a moment, hundreds of people from both sides lost their lives and fell from the sky. Chapter 760. The sky was about to turn bright, but the battle in the sky above Star Dragon City was still ongoing. It was not until noon that the battle finally ended with the retreat of the insectoids. According to the statistics, Star Dragon City had lost 2 nascent soul cultivators, 1,400 golden core cultivators, 10,000 foundation establishment cultivators, and countless ordinary soldiers. The surroundings of Star Dragon City were dyed dark red by the blood. The smell of blood was so strong that it was hard to look at it directly. For Star Dragon City, this was a Pyrrhic victory that cost a lot of lives. Buzz! The broken cockpit of the battle suit opened slowly. Qin Chongxiao staggered out with a pale face. He looked back at the mark left by the penetrating attack on the left side of the cockpit and felt lucky. If the attack had been a little bit more to the center, he might not have been able to come back alive today. "Father," Qin Yiming, who had been on tenterhooks for the whole day, almost cried when he saw Qin Chongxiao return. Qin Chongxiao coughed and said to Qin Yiming, "What are you shouting for? Are you attending a funeral?" "Father, I'm sorry. I was just too emotional." Qin Yiming raised his hand to wipe away the faint tears at the corner of his eyes. He didn't want others to see that he was so excited that he almost shed tears. He was already more than 100 years old, and he would also feel ashamed. Although he won this battle, it was too difficult. Qin Chongxiao looked at the beetle battleships in the sky and sighed. Zerg's sacrifice was much smaller than ours. Qin Yiming's expression changed slightly. He asked, "Father, are you saying that we can't hold on anymore?" Qin Chongxiao shook his head and said to Qin Yiming, "We can, but every day we hold on, Star Dragon City's overall strength will weaken. When Zerg no longer wants to play this game with us, it will be the time of our demise." Although he had only fought Zerg once, Qin Chongxiao knew very well that Zerg was only testing the waters this time. It could be said that Zerg was fighting with a playful mentality. However, they had given their all. When Zerg was serious, their situation would be even more difficult than it was today. Qin Yiming was about to say something to Qin Chongxiao when an earth-shattering explosion came from the northwest. Qin Yiming swallowed all his words back into his stomach. Qin Yiming looked to the northwest in shock. His mouth was agape, but no words came out. Qin Chongxiao, who was standing beside him, turned around and walked into the cockpit of the battlesuit again. He drove the battered battlesuit to the northwest. Enemy attack. Zerg is invading from the northwest. Panic cries rang out in the northwest district of Star Dragon City. The exhausted warriors who had just fought for a day and a night immediately dragged their exhausted bodies back to the battlefield. However, how could they be a match for the insectoid assault squad that had been recuperating for a long time? They were routed the moment they clashed, and rivers of blood flowed. When the reinforcements arrived, almost half of the northwest had been set ablaze. People were fighting everywhere. At the same time, the southeast had also discovered Zerg's invasion. However, because of what happened in the northwest, they were repelled by the reinforcements who arrived in time. After nearly half a day of fierce fighting, the defenders of Star Dragon City once again repelled Zerg's attack. This time, their losses were even more severe than the previous battle. The entire Northwest City District had been reduced to rubble. Gowan walked in the northwest. His face was pale as he looked at the blood and the corpses that had not been dealt with in time. "Chairman," the secretary ran over and reported to Gao in, "News came from the Long family. Zerg used a formation-breaking device to open a gap in the Star Dragon formation. That's how he managed to break into the northwest." Formation-breaking device? Gowan frowned. What does that mean? The formation-breaking device is a tool that was developed specifically to counter defensive formations. It can temporarily break a corner of a defensive formation. It only lasts for a short period of time, but it's enough for Zerg to launch a surprise attack. Hearing this explanation, Gowan asked, "Is there no way to counter it?" The secretary's face was a little complicated. He said in a low voice, "The defense of the Star Dragon formation is not something that can be broken by a normal formation-breaking device. At least, with the technology of the Star Dragon Federation, we can't do it. However, the opponent is Zerg." The secretary didn't finish his words, but Gowan understood what the secretary meant. The technology of the Star Dragon Federation couldn't break the Star Dragon formation, but with Zerg's technology, it wasn't difficult. In the end, it wasn't the Long family that couldn't do it. It was the entire Star Dragon Federation that couldn't do it. "I understand. Tell Long Fei for me. Tell him to rest well and not to work too hard." Gao pursed his lips and said to the secretary, "Tell the research department to do research on Zerg's formation-breaking device as soon as possible. Give me a satisfactory answer in 3 days." "Yes, I understand. Star Dragon City is safe." Chun Chongqing let out a long sigh of relief. His heart was finally at ease. Lu Zi wiped the cold sweat off her forehead and sighed. It really wasn't easy. I don't know how many people were sacrificed in this battle. From the situation of Zerg's warships, Zerg's attack this time should only be a probing attack. However, for Star Dragon City, this battle is extremely difficult to win. Long Zhao's face was complicated. He said in a low voice, "If Zerg attacks like this every day, I don't know how long Star Dragon City can hold on. I have good news for all of you. At this moment, Bayou walked over and said to everyone, the 7th Legion stationed in the Elf City has already contacted the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd Legions. The 1st, 2nd, and 3rd Legions will arrive at the Elf City this evening. Then, the 4 Legions will join forces and head to Star Dragon City. Hearing the news brought by Bayou, everyone was extremely surprised. The 1st, 2nd, and 3rd Legions had actually withdrawn from the World Mountain. Without waiting for anyone to ask, Bayou continued, Zerg's men in the World Mountain are mainly arranged on the side of the Demon Realm. The defense on the side bordering the Star Dragon Federation is relatively weak. The 1st, 2nd, and 3rd Legions worked together to break out. Although there were some losses, it didn't affect them much. In addition, the 10th Legion under Qin Ju has already set off for Star Dragon City. The 6th and 9th Legions are also moving with the 10th Legion. As for the other legions, there is no movement for the time being. What about us? Long Shao looked at Bayou. Should we follow the 4 legions? Bayou nodded. We have already been incorporated into the 7th Legion's volunteer army. We are now a member of the 7th Legion. Chapter 761. Star Dragon City had defended against Zerg's first wave of attack. This was undoubtedly a shot in the arm for the people of the Star Dragon Federation. It turned out that Zerg was not as strong as they had imagined. He could also be defeated. The victory of this battle had diluted the psychological shadow left in everyone's hearts when the air center fell, as well as the fear of Zerg. Many people had regained their spirits. However, there were also some people who were pessimistic about the current situation of Star Dragon City. In their opinion, rather than saying that Star Dragon City had won this battle, it would be better to say that Zerg had gone too easy on them. According to the analysis of the data brought back by the intelligence personnel at the scene, Star Dragon City's losses were at least 10 times that of Zerg, and the number of combat personnel dispatched by Star Dragon City was at least 10 times that of Star Dragon City. This was only the analysis of the battle that happened outside Star Dragon City. It did not include the surprise attack in the Northwest City. If that surprise attack was included, Star Dragon City's losses would be even greater. It was also because of this that many legions were hesitating about whether to go to Star Dragon City to support them. Even though there were already legions that had set an example to Star Dragon City, they still had a wait-and-see attitude. On the main ship of the 10th Legion, Qin Ju looked at the reply of the 14th Legion's commander, Su Zhe. His face couldn't help but turn ashen as he said angrily, "They're all a bunch of good-for-nothings bastards." Seeing Qin Ju's anger, the adjutant standing at the side immediately said to Qin Ju, "General, there's no need to be angry over this kind of trash. It's not worth it." Qin Ju said hatefully, "Right now, the Star Dragon Federation is in danger. These people who are in high positions and have taken all the benefits don't think about how to serve the Federation and fight Zerg for the Federation. Instead, they're all cowards who want to live. Why don't they think that after Star Dragon City is breached, Zerg will let them go? Don't tell me they all want to be traitors?" Hearing Qin Ju's words, Yuna sighed helplessly and said to Qin Ju, "These legions are usually stationed in the interior of the Federation and have little combat experience. In the long run, they will lose their courage. It's not surprising that they would make such a cowardly move at such a time." Qin Ju also knew that Yuna was right, but he was still angry. "General, it's not that there's no good news. The 1st, 2nd, and the 3rd Legion have already broken out of the World Mountain. They will go to the Elf City to meet up with the 7th Legion and then support us." Yuna said to Qin Ju, "This way, including the 6th and 9th Legions, we will have the combat strength of 7 legions. Furthermore, they're all elites among elites. This will definitely be a great help to Star Dragon City. When the time comes, we will work together with Star Dragon City to attack the insectoids from both inside and outside." Yuna was extremely shocked when she heard this. Our 7 legions together have at least 200,000 soldiers. 4 of them are battleship forces with more than 1,000 battleships. This kind of power is enough to sweep across the entire world. Can't we defeat Zerg? Then do you know how strong the world center is? Chinju took a deep look at Yuna. The world center is stronger than us. It was also swept away and captured by Zerg within 3 days. If Star Dragon City didn't have the protection of the Star Dragon formation, it would have fallen yesterday. Chinju's words had a huge impact on Yuna. She had never thought that Zerg would be so powerful. That's why we have to gather all our strength to defeat Zerg. Moreover, you have to know that we are only facing one of Zerg's armies. Compared to the entire Zerg, it might only be a drop in the ocean. Chinju let out a long sigh. If we want to win this war, it will be more difficult than you think. After saying this, Chinju said to Yuna, "Help me contact the Elf City and help me find Qinchuan." Ever since he found out that Lu Zi and the other 3 had used the 4-star Heavenly God formation to fight against Zerg Consul, Chinju wanted to contact Qinchuan. However, the message she sent to Qinchuan was like a stone sinking into the sea, without any reply. This gave Chinju a bad premonition. However, he had been busy with the mobilization of the army recently and did not have the time to inquire about Qinchuan. Now, he could take advantage of the opportunity to contact the 7th Legion of the Elf City to inquire about Qinchuan. I understand. I will arrange it. Yuna also knew that Chinju was concerned about Qinchuan, so he naturally knew what to do. Above Star Dragon City, Beetle Warship, main ship. Shifeng stood in front of Kafeng and said respectfully, "Marshal, the results are out. In yesterday's battle, we lost a total of 200 and 400 soldiers, and about 3,000 were injured." Hearing Shifeng's answer, Kafeng asked, "What about the humans?" "More than 30,000 humans died in battle. It's more than 10 times ours," Shifeng said proudly. "If we continue fighting like this, Star Dragon City will definitely not be able to withstand it and will be defeated by us." Hearing this, Kafeng looked deeply at Shifeng and asked, "Yesterday's surprise attack failed. It will be difficult to attack again in the future." Shifeng nodded and replied, "That may be the case, but the humans have to be on guard against our surprise attacks at all times. At the very least, we can restrain a portion of their forces and reduce the number of troops they can send into the main battlefield. We must defend the World Mountain." Kafeng said to Shifeng, "Send another fleet over. No matter how strong the demons are, we must defend for at least 10 days." Hearing Kafeng's words, Shifeng hesitated and said, "Aren't we paying too much attention to the demons? The demons are more united than the humans and stronger than you think. Don't let your guard down." Kafeng looked at Shifeng indifferently. "Do as I say." "Yes." Shifeng didn't say anything else and respectfully agreed. "Also, I heard that the Star Dragon Federation has legions coming from other places to support them. They don't seem to be weak." Kafeng looked at Shifeng. "Arrange another troop to attack and harass them. Try to delay their arrival at Star Dragon City as much as possible. I want to make sure that we won't be disturbed before we break through Star Dragon City." Shifeng nodded. "I will definitely arrange it properly. You may leave." Kafeng waved his hand. "Prepare for the next attack. Directly mobilize the combat power of 4 fleets. If we don't kill 50,000 humans, the battle will not stop." Chapter 762. No one would have thought that Zerg's second attack on Star Dragon City would come so quickly and so fiercely. In the first battle, Zerg had already sent all of his 10,000 battle force into the battlefield. He even used more than 10 beetle warships. Compared to the previous battle, almost half of Star Dragon City was shrouded in the flames of war. Not only that, Zerg also used the same trick again. He used surprise attack squads to break through the enemy's formation and attack all around Star Dragon City, causing the defenders in Star Dragon City to be exhausted. This battle lasted for nearly 2 days before the insectoids finally retreated. Star Dragon City finally had a chance to catch their breath, and after calculating the losses, everyone's faces were gloomy and hard to see any smiles on their faces. 50,000. In this battle, Star Dragon City had sacrificed a total of 50,000 soldiers. If the casualties in the first battle were included, Star Dragon City had lost more than 70,000 soldiers in just 3 days. This was a number that made everyone feel extremely heavy. They could already see the densely packed corpses piling up in front of them like a great wall. More than 70,000 people, and they were all gone in just 2 battles. Gowan's eyes were red as he looked at the blood-stained street in front of him. He was emotional, and his voice was choked with emotion. June stood beside Gowan with an ashen face. He gritted his teeth and said, "This is Zerg's scheme. They want to exhaust us to death." Although Star Dragon City had nearly 1,000,000 soldiers, it was impossible for all of them to be sent into the battlefield. At most, only 500,000 soldiers could be sent into the battlefield. In just 2 battles, nearly 1/5 of their battle force had been used up. If this continued, it wouldn't be long before Zerg exhausted all of their battle force. At that time, even if Star Dragon City hadn't been breached, it would be no different from being breached. Hearing June's words, Gowan turned to look at June and said, "I'm going to organize a group of people to rush out of Star Dragon City and call for reinforcement from the various legions." Now that 3 days had passed, Gowan knew almost nothing about the movements outside Star Dragon City. He didn't know if the legions stationed in various places had rushed to Star Dragon City to support. If they did, that would be for the best. If they didn't, then he would use military orders to order them to support Star Dragon City. If they obeyed his orders, then everything would be fine. If they disobeyed his orders, then, as long as he didn't die, he would turn them into ashes. Star Dragon City being breached won't do them any good. When a nest is overturned, no egg can remain intact. They should understand this logic. June sighed. Although Star Dragon City is now, we should still be able to hold on for a while. You shouldn't be too anxious. I know, Gowan nodded. But I don't want to continue being so passive. I want to seize the initiative. I'll listen to you. June had never argued with Gowan on such important matters. Now that they needed to unify their thoughts, the most taboo thing was to have differences of opinion. 10th Legion, main ship. Yuna stood at the door of Ju's office, hesitating in his heart. It was as if he didn't know if he should meet Ju at this time. Just as Yuna was feeling conflicted, the office door suddenly opened. Ju sat on a chair and looked at Yuna, who was standing at the door, and asked, "You've been standing here for 10 minutes. If you have anything to report, come in and say it." Hearing Ju's words, Yuna took a step forward and walked into the office. He said to Ju, "General, there's news from Star Dragon City. Star Dragon City has defended this battle again." Hearing this, Ju looked at Yuna with a subtle gaze and asked, "What are you talking about? I already knew about this news 2 hours ago. You deliberately stood at the door of my office for 10 minutes because you wanted to report this information a second time?" Yuna's expression changed slightly, and he suddenly fell silent. Seeing this, Ju raised his eyebrows slightly, as if he was extremely puzzled by Yuna's behavior. "What exactly do you want?" Ju frowned. "If you haven't thought of what to say, then go out first. Think about it before coming in." Seeing that Ju was a little impatient, Yuna whispered to him, "I contacted the 7th Legion earlier. They've already replied to me." Hearing Yuna's words, Ju's expression changed slightly. He asked, "Is it about Chuan?" Yuna nodded and said to Ju, "General, calm down first. This speak." Ju shouted angrily, "What happened to Chuan?" Seeing that Ju was angry, Yuna immediately replied, "General, Chuan has gone missing." Hearing Yuna's answer, Ju was slightly stunned and asked, "Missing? What do you mean?" According to Lu Zi and the others, Chuan was targeted at the World Center and then lost contact. They can confirm that Chuan is still alive, but they don't know where Chuan is now. Yuna said to Ju helplessly, "That's all I know. Lu Zi and the others will also move with the 7th Legion. I might have to wait until you guys meet to ask more details." Hearing this, Ju frowned and said to Yuna, "I understand. You can leave." After Yuna left, Ju couldn't help but rub his head. She really had a headache now that her father and brother were trapped in Star Dragon City. It was unknown whether they were alive or dead. Qingchuan's whereabouts were unknown, and none of her family members could make her feel at ease. This feeling was too terrible. Just as Qingju was feeling helpless and had a headache over these matters, Yuna actually returned at this moment and said to Qingju anxiously, "General, our scouts have found traces of Zerg's fleet 3,000 kilometers ahead." Hearing Yuna's words, Qingju immediately stood up from his chair and said to Yuna, "Let's go to the command room." Qingju led Yuna into the command room and asked the staff officer, "What's the situation now?" "General, the scouts are certain that Zerg's fleet is coming for us." The staff officer quickly replied, "According to our current speed, we will definitely encounter the other party in less than 2 hours. What should we do? What should we do?" Qingju's face was cold as he said in a deep voice, "Fight. Pass down my orders. All troops are to prepare for battle. When Zerg's battleship enters the attack range, immediately attack. There's no need to leave any leeway. Just go all out." Although everyone was surprised by Qingju's decisiveness, no one objected to Qingju's orders at this time. Everyone immediately took action and made all the preparations for the upcoming battle. Chapter 763. When Zerg's fleet was within 500 kilometers of the 10th Legion, the 10th Legion's assault fleet immediately attacked. They split into 2 flanks and attacked Zerg's battleships, while the fleet provided heavy firepower to suppress them from the front. The battle began very suddenly. Zerg's fleet was caught off guard and was given a beautiful first strike by the 10th Legion. However, when Zerg's battleships reacted, the battle immediately fell into a stalemate. It was difficult for the 10th Legion to gain any advantage. This battle attracted the attention of various forces as soon as it began. Everyone wanted to see how the most elite fleet of the Star Dragon Federation would perform against Zerg's battleships. And the 10th Legion did not disappoint. After half a day of arduous battle, the 10th Legion successfully forced Zerg's battleships to retreat and won the battle. Qingju stood on the deck of the main ship and looked at the ground below coldly. The originally gentle grassland had turned into scorched earth. There were flames of war burning everywhere, and blood was flowing. A tragic aura enveloped the entire land, causing everyone's mood to become incomparably heavy at this moment. The 10th Legion had won this battle, but Qingju was not happy at all because the losses of the 10th Legion were too heavy. "General, the results are out." Yuna slowly walked over from behind and said to Qingju in an extremely low voice, "We lost a total of 16 battleships for patrol ships, 1 logistics ship. In terms of personnel, the assault force lost 1,800 people. The vanguard force lost 3,100 people. The logistics force lost 97 people, a total of 4,997 people." Hearing Yuna's report, Qingju closed his eyes and asked, "Where's Zerg?" Yuna was silent for a moment before replying, "Zerg's battleships lost 2, and the number of casualties is about 300. Qingju turned his head and looked deeply at Yuna. He pursed his lips and said, "Did we really win this battle?" With the sacrifice of nearly 5,000 people and the loss of more than 20 battleships, they had only lost 300 Zerg's men and 2 battleships. Could such a victory really be considered victory? Rather than saying that Zerg was defeated by them, it was better to say that Zerg did not want to continue fighting with them. After all, Zerg retreated. Yuna whispered, "We did win." Qingju shook his head and said to Na, "The 6th and 9th Legions are approaching us. If we continue to fight, Zerg's fleet might fall into a pincer attack from all 3 sides. They saw this and chose to retreat, not be beaten back by us." Furthermore, Qingju took a deep breath. Zerg's battle losses should have only appeared when we attacked first. By the time we get there, Zerg's battle losses should have been very small. Yuna was silent because Qingju was right. In the following battles, Zerg's losses could be said to be negligible. In the past, people kept telling me that Zerg is a civilization of a higher level than us. At that time, I scoffed at this saying. But now, I have to admit that Zerg is indeed stronger than us. Qin Ju sighed. If we want to defeat Zerg, we have to unite all the forces that can be united. Only by working together will we have a chance to defeat Zerg. Otherwise, Qin Ju did not continue, but you now understood what Qin Ju meant. If they could not overwhelm Zerg with numbers, then they would have no chance of winning. This was definitely not a good thing for them. The results of the battle between the 10th Legion and Zerg were immediately sent to the desks of the leaders of the major forces. The huge difference between 305,000 made everyone tremble in fear. Zerg's fleet of less than 20 warships could easily block the 10th Legion with 300 warships. This battle strength was really too strong and too shocking. If any of the legions of the Star Dragon Federation were to fight against Zerg's fleet alone, there's basically no chance of winning. We're really too weak. The commander of the 7th Legion, Han Exen, looked at the results sent by his deputy and sighed helplessly. Even if the 7th Legion joined forces, they might not be able to destroy Zerg's entire fleet. General, the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd Legions have arrived. They want to meet up with the 10th, 6th, and 9th Legions directly and then attack Star Dragon City. Hearing his deputy's words, Han Exen nodded and ordered, "Pass down the order. Everyone in the 7th Legion is to immediately pack their luggage and board the fleet to prepare to depart. Also, the Revolutionary Army is to be settled down." The deputy looked at Han Exen hesitantly and said, "General, the 7th Legion is not a warship force after all. If we attack Zerg together with a warship force, well, what will it be?" Han Exen interrupted his deputy and said in a deep voice, "As long as we can destroy Zerg and save Star Dragon City, the 7th Legion is willing to charge at the front. I, as the commander, will lead the charge. If my sacrifice can be exchanged for the overall victory, then I will slit my own throat right now." Seeing Han Exen's resolute attitude, the deputy immediately felt guilty and said, "I'm sorry. Commander, I know what you mean, and I understand what you mean. But this is a special time. We have to be on the same side." Han Exen comforted his deputy and said, "After giving the order, you should go and have a good rest." "Got it." The deputy nodded and turned to leave. "Are you all done packing?" Luzi looked at the people who were packing their luggage. They were about to depart with the 7th Legion, so they needed to bring all the necessary things with them. She did not know when they would be able to come back again. "Don't worry, we are all ready." Long Xiao turned to look at Lu Zi and said, "I find that you are becoming more and more like the old Qin Chuan. It feels like you're the good wife of the Qin family." Hearing Long Xiao's teasing, Lu Zi smiled and replied, "You all think that I am the good wife of the Qin family, but Qin Chuan himself may not necessarily think so." The fact that Lu Zi liked Qin Chuan was not a secret in their small circle. They had always liked to tease Lu Zi with the good wife of the Qin family. At this time, when they heard Lu Zi's words, the first thing they thought of was Yao Rao. Although they did not dislike Yao Rao, they did not like her very much. From their point of view, they certainly hoped that Qin Chuan and Lu Zi could be together, but they could not say much about emotional matters. They could only let nature take its course. Lu Zi. At this time, Su Yulua walked in and said to Lu Zi, "Senior Hui Tong wants to see you. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories."